Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular once again.
Hello.
Well, folks, news is coming in fast this week. Wow, what a bunch of stories. There's so much that we're not going to get to today. That's how much is out here.
JD Vance VP.
Yeah.
RFK, the new Surgeon General.
Yeah, right, exactly. We didn't even have time for that one. That
Ramaswamy at Health and Human Services.
Jack Black, Tenacious D. You hear about that?
Yeah,
Crazy.
Well, he got
what a
got
story.
banned from Australia, right?
What a story that is. Yeah, Tenacious D canceling the. I mean, just the absolute. That's what's not featured on the show today. Obviously, JD Vance is, but a lot of stuff that we had to move out of the show today because of just how much stuff is coming in. I want to take a one Rumble rant first here because this can double as some housekeeping from His Highness. 3 things. Look at this fucking guy. 3 things for $1. 3 things. You can't give us $3 for 3 things? What is that, 33 cents a thing?
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Asking us 3 things for $1. All right. Are you covering Trump's speech live on Thursday? Probably. Do you know when next supporter stream will be? That's number 2. I'll get to that in a second. And will you consider holding viewer contests to design new logo? We have some people who we've put it out there.
That's actually not a bad idea. That's actually a very good idea.
We'll take solicitations. We can't commit to a viewer contest because ultimately we need one we can go with. So you guys are welcome to submit. We can't be like, yeah, we'll take the best one, because what if the best one's not very good? We still need a good logo.
But we can. Yeah, but we can.
We can open it up. Yeah, sure. If you got an idea, send it to us. Yeah. As for the supporter,
so far, this is what I will say. There's the helpful hint. Anyone who's like taken a crack at this basically sent us our thing. Modified? No, I want a total redesign, reconception of it. Like somebody took just the scripts and basically took out the circle. Like we could.
That was a cool T-shirt design. I mean, I like that.
The T-shirt was much better.
Yeah, the T-shirt was good.
I thought.
Yeah, I like.
But if we're gonna redesign the whole logo, there's no point in starting new merch based on the old one.
Yeah. Yeah. And as for the supporter streams, there will be a couple supporter streams this month, as there always are. I'm a little skittish to book one too far in advance because Amanda could go into labor at any moment. So that's making them a little bit more difficult to schedule this month, but we will get them in, we promise, by hook or by crook. No pun intended there. All right, so let's get into some stuff. We have a ton of stuff here, folks. Hit that like button.
We didn't even get to all the people who died.
Hit that follow button. No, actually, yeah, we didn't get to Richard Simmons.
I sent you that.
Yeah,
image.
I forgot all about that. Richard Simmons, Shelley Duvall. Who's the woman who had breast cancer? That's a sad one. She was young.
Shannon Doherty.
Yeah, that was sad. She was only 53. And Shelley Duvall was actually younger than I thought. So how old was she?
She was what, 75?
75, which, I mean, The Shining was what?
I mean,
81? That's 45 years ago.
She lived a life.
She lived a life, yes. She lived a life. And she enjoyed her life very much, as we all know.
Yes.
But Shelley Duvall, that means she was only 30 in The Shining, I guess. She looked a little older. I guess she was supposed to. She was supposed to look like an abused spouse who had lived a life. So yeah, but that makes sense. But yeah, when you
She
think
was,
about it,
she
young.
was, yeah. Like I didn't know this. She was not an actress. They randomly grabbed her, Robert Altman. They were in town shooting a movie, and she was at a party that they were at because her husband was somehow connected to somebody working on the film, and she had such a unique look. They made her audition. She didn't even want to do it. She was like getting a degree in nutrition from some local college.
She had a very sort of every person quality about her, you know?
She was definitely
She
like
looked real.
nobody else.
Yeah.
But it's very funny that somebody who was just randomly grabbed like that wound up being as good as she was.
She was
Like, yeah, if
she
you
was
understand
terrific.
film, that's totally feasible because it's such a director's medium that if you get someone who just has an interesting look, you can make that work. But she actually was good.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, look, The Shining is, I mean, that is a hell of a role. I mean,
The Shining, exactly.
I mean, Jesus.
The fact that she was a random person with no interest in being an actor who just randomly got grabbed by one of the premier directors of that moment and wound up being this really, really good actress.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was
that's a
almost
one in
better
a
than
million
Nicholson in The
story.
Shining when you think about it. I mean, Nicholson gave an over-the-top performance. Not that it was bad, it was great, but actors can generally do that, you know, to have to react to that, which is basically what Shelley Duvall's doing the whole movie. She's basically just watching him descend into madness. That's in a way harder than actually playing the madman.
Well, I read an article about this, and Robert Altman had been very, you get the impression, very fatherly with her, and she always had a good time working with him. And Kubrick was pretty infamously OCD.
Yeah, yeah.
So she had to do that take on the stairs where she's crying like 143 times or something.
Yeah, it was
and
a lot.
Nicholson, according to the article I read, Nicholson said, I don't know how you do it, because every single day she had to hysterically sob on command for months on end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, that was a hell of a role for sure. His Highness, fine. Now I won't be able to afford my insulin. You happy now? Gross. Thank you, His Highness.
What are you talking about? Joe Biden lowered the insulin cost for you.
Yeah, he capped it. Don't you know how great you have it? Yeah.
You've never had it so good.
Never had it so good. All right, folks, let's get into some material. As many of you know, because we know we have a big, we share a lot of audience with Morning Joe. So I know a lot of you guys yesterday morning woke up at 5:40, brewed a pot of coffee, and sat on your couch and turned on MSNBC, and were all ready for Morning Joe to come on, but they were not on. Morning Joe pulled from air Monday because of Trump shooting. This was Sunday night. This came out. MSNBC will not air, so this was written the day prior, will not air Morning Joe, its celebrated politics roundtable program on Monday, opting to instead air continued breaking news coverage of the attempted assassination of the former president, Donald Trump. The Progressive News Network confirmed, the Liberal News Network confirmed the Never Trump Republican News Network confirmed the decision to preempt its influential and top-rated morning show after a CNN inquiry Sunday evening. The network said the show will resume airing Tuesday, which it did this morning. More on that in a moment. The decision by MSNBC to leave one of its most recognizable programs on the sidelines amid a seismic politics-driven news cycle, with the Republican National Convention getting underway in the wake of the Saturday shooting at Trump's campaign rally, is certain to raise eyebrows. A person familiar with the matter told CNN that the decision was made to avoid a scenario in which one of the show's stable of 24+ guests might make an inappropriate comment on live television that could be used to assail the program and network as a whole. So instead, they decided to live stream the Tenacious D concert, thinking this is good, wholesome entertainment, and ooh, did they regret that? Yeah. My joke, my editorial, that's not what they did. Instead, they did run some breaking news content, but not the whole day, as we'll get to in a little bit. Given the break...
Who knew he was going to do Send in the Clowns?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Nobody saw that coming.
No, big curveball there. Given the breaking news nature of the story, the person said it made more sense to continue airing rolling breaking news coverage in the fraught political moment, Given the gravity and complexity of this unfolding story, NBC News, NBC News Now, and MSNBC have remained in rolling breaking news coverage since Saturday evening, a spokesperson for NBC Universal News Group said in a statement to CNN. As we continue to cover this story into the week, the networks will continue to cross-simulcast, alternating between NBC News, NBC News Now, and MSNBC reports, so there is one news feed covering this developing situation. Cesar Conde, the chairman of NBC Universal News Group, made the decision, in conjunction with Rashida Jones, the president of MSNBC, and host Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, the person familiar with the matter, told CNN.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. Apparently they didn't know until the morning, according to what Joe and Mika say in the video that we'll show you in a second. Over the course of the campaign cycle, news organizations have reported at length on Trump's plans to warp the federal government for his own ends, including to seek vengeance against his political opponents. That reporting is now facing scrutiny, with some Trump supporters blaming it for producing a charged atmosphere that gave way to the assassination attempt, while mostly looking past the incendiary rhetoric of the former president himself. Final slide. MSNBC has in particular been blasted by Trump allies, putting the network in the spotlight. Some of Trump's allies have gone as far as to attack the network's parent company, Comcast. It's not the first time MSNBC has made such programming decisions in charged political moments. Obviously, they go on to mention here, after October 7th, they canned their Muslim anchors for a little while, ended up firing Mehdi Hassan altogether over his pro-Gaza bents. Joe and Mika did not get axed, though. They were back this morning and not happy. Not happy. Believe me, not good. So here they are.
Briefly talk to our friends and viewers that watch us every day, and talk about what happened yesterday. We were told in no uncertain terms on Sunday evening that there was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels yesterday. The Today Show would be Lester Holt, other people that you worked with on Sunday, and that was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels, that we were going to stay as a network in breaking news mode throughout all day yesterday. That did not happen. We don't know why that didn't happen, or team was not given a good answer as to why that didn't happen. But
well, I think they gave you a line of bullshit because they didn't want you guys on. They had their primetime lineup on, which we'll get to in the next segment. But yeah, these guys got passed over.
It didn't happen. We were also told it was going to happen throughout the day. And I guess after there was such a strong blowback about yesterday morning, I guess they changed their plans. And so those plans changed as well. So it didn't. You know, we've talked about it off the air. We'll talk about it on the air because we talk about everything on the air. We were very surprised. We were very disappointed. And if we had known that there wasn't going to be the one news feed from NBC News across all NBC News channels, Willie, we obviously would have been in yesterday morning.
Yeah, I was here up early on Sunday morning with NBC's coverage. Savannah and I led the coverage on Sunday in the immediate aftermath, talking to eyewitnesses, talking to officials about what happened. Obviously suited up and ready to go for yesterday morning on a big morning, and we're told that something else was going to be broadcast. So we are here today, going through a lot, catching up a little bit. But
I like that morning.
We want to be here for our audience, and we know you trust us, and we have ultimate respect for you guys. So we are here today. I wish we'd been here yesterday.
Yeah, we all wish we would have been here yesterday. We still would like to figure out exactly why there wasn't that one news feed.
And I think the reason why is this show began and continues 17 years later on being the place where you can go to have the hard conversations in a civil way. And so it seemed like now more than ever is a time that we would like to be on. And
no, that's why you think you should have been on. But obviously the network didn't feel that way. The network was terrified that one of you idiots was going to mouth off and say the wrong thing, because as the article says, they do bring in about 20 people. I mean, Morning Joe is famous. People make fun of it for like the Hollywood Squares layout, like a overcrowded Zoom call where each guest guest has 1/10 of the screen. So yeah, between all those people, someone was going to say something insane.
Well, hang on. So this is from a link in Taibbi's commentary on this. This is worth mentioning because there is another article from CNN. A person familiar with the matter told CNN that the decision was made to avoid a scenario in which one of the show's stable of 24+ guests might make an inappropriate comment on live television that could be used to assail the program and network as a whole.
Yeah, I read that. That's the same article.
Is it?
Yeah. That's the one. It said that in the article I just read. Yeah.
Did it? I missed it.
No, it's okay. But yeah, no, that's obviously what it was. I mean, that had to be what it was. I mean, there's no question. I'm pretty sure I said that in there, right? A person familiar with CNN. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, okay. I missed it.
You're making your call.
I thought it was an earlier version.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's obviously what this was. There's no question about that. And they think, they are the A team, which in fairness to them, I mean, they are the A team. They're one of the highest paid people. They're some of the highest paid people on that network. And so, like, if you don't trust them in that moment, why do you have them on the air? And Joe says pretty much that.
I think our viewers agree with that. So we continue. We are 5 minutes past the top of the hour.
No, and let me just say, next time we're told there's going to be a news feed replacing us, we will be in our chairs.
We'll be sitting here.
Yeah, and the news feed will be us, or they can get somebody else
sitting here
to host the show.
Wow. The news feed will be us, or you can get someone else to host the show. Wow. Salty there from Joe Scarborough.
Well, yeah.
Is it Morning Jover? Morning Jover for MSNBC. That should be a hashtag. They should have gotten that going.
Well, and if you want to understand why they have such a sense of entitlement, I actually pulled this down from my bookshelf. I've mentioned this book a few times, and I'm going to recommend it again because I was kind of looking through it. They cover Joe and Mika quite a bit. They come up a lot. It's called This Town by Mark Lebovich, I believe it is. It's a really odd book because you don't normally get somebody who is as much of an insider journalist as he was, not anymore since he wrote that book, who would go off the reservation like that and do a tell-all book about how all this really works. Part of the reason I think they're so offended is they're kind of the king and the queen of this little kind of incestuous, bipartisan group of insiders. They lead jogging clubs in the early morning in Washington where there are Republicans and Democrats, all these people they're supposed to be reporting on. So that's like telling the king and the queen of the prom that you can't come to the party.
Yes.
That's why they're so offended. Us, we can't comment on this. Us.
Yeah, this is like Bill Maher getting turned down from the Oscars party. Right.
I'm
the most important person here.
Right. This should be a very big moment for them. Now that book covers the years 2008 to 2012. So some things that the book is commenting on are just starting, like the shift away from legacy media and towards kind of proto influencers. Sites like Politico are new at the time that this book is written. Nonetheless, it's still better than anything I've ever read. Really paints a picture of how Washington works in that it's very much like Hollywood. Like the way it's described in that book, it's very much who do you know and who do people like? And, everyone knows Becca. Everyone wants to get photographed by Becca. It's all that. It's all that. It says this book, more than anything I've ever read, really informs its readers. The worst things you think about what Washington is probably like, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah. Do you have the book on you or no? Couldn't find it.
You want to give me 1 second? I'll grab it.
We don't have to.
I'll grab it on the break.
Yeah, grab it on the break. There you go. So we just heard from Morning Joe and Mika. They were very, very upset on Monday morning that they were not allowed to be on the air in the aftermath of the Trump shooting, since I'm sure they had a lot of wisdom to impart upon this ailing nation. I'm sure they could have healed the country if they were allowed to speak, but they were not.
Oh, yes. They would have brought us all together.
They would have brought us all together. That's right. And so on Tuesday morning, they expressed their displeasure at the program change because the excuse that MSNBC gave them was that, hey, we're just going to do breaking news all day, so we're not going to bring out the heavy hitters to do their regularly scheduled shows. We're just going to kind of be reacting to the news as it comes in. Of course, Monday was also the start of the Republican National Convention. And of course, MSNBC's heavy hitters, the primetime lineup, was covering the RNC. And so Joe and Mika weren't on the air, but Jen Psaki, Rachel Maddow, and Joy Reid all were. And here they start running their mouths about the events of the weekend to the point where Joe and Mika got to be saying, well, what we said probably wouldn't have been worse than this.
Kind of reaction that I'm getting, whether it's civilian, universal kind of reaction that I'm getting.
Before we get into it, far be it from me to take Joe and Mika's side on anything, but you're going to pull them and put these clowns on the air?
You're going to put Maddow.
You're going to put Joy fucking Reid, one of the most irresponsible people on their network, if not the most irresponsible person up there. She's like Maddow, not as smart.
Well, Maddow is more likely to come up with some crazy shit, in terms of like some sort of conspiracy theory that they wouldn't want to spread.
But she's careful about how she couches things.
Well, here's Joy Reid.
Universal kind of reaction that I'm getting, whether it's civilians or, professionals, is really a deep concern and lack of confidence in not us at this table or us at MSNBC, but us as the media writ large. And a fear that what's going to happen now is that the Republican Party will do what they do. They're in the middle of a campaign. The convention started today. But the media will acquiesce to trying to convince people that the things they've been experiencing for the last, 5-6 years didn't happen. That the greatest purveyor and promoter of political violence, really, since anyone can remember, since George Wallace, I think, that we just haven't experienced that kind of open, sort of citing or sort of incitement of violence or sort of luxuriating in the idea of violence. It's just not something we're used to anymore in American politics. And then we had to get used to that being a thing. And people are concerned and expressing concern that we won't be the guardians of memory and that we will allow Donald Trump, as he is, bathed in the glory and grandeur of his party, to rewrite himself as both a hero and a victim, that people who are the most vulnerable to not just the things he's done, but the things he's promising to do, and that will then happen without a guardian saying, wait, stop. And then the media will acquiesce to this rewrite. And the people that I've been talking to don't accept the rewrite.
Don't accept the rewrite what? That he's a victim? I mean, he got shot in the face. I mean, to be fair to the guy, he did get shot in the face. So you do have some claim to victimhood when you take a bullet in the ear. I mean, that's not rewriting yourself as a victim. I mean, he is a victim. He had a bullet took off a piece of his ear. But we can't allow him to claim that status for himself without being the guardian of a certain narrative. That you would bring up that how can we allow Donald Trump to be the victim? And what the people victimized by Donald Trump, she brought that up too. What did she say? I forget how she put it. Let me go back and see this again.
And that we will allow
the most vulnerable people.
Donald
the
Trump,
most vulnerable people,
as
that's
he
right.
is, bathed in the glory and grandeur of his party, to rewrite himself as both a hero and a victim, that people who are the most vulnerable to not just the things he's done, but the things he's promising to do, and that will then happen without a guardian saying, wait, stop. And then the media will act.
Yeah, you know, the vulnerable people in the world right now live in Gaza. They seem to be victimized pretty hard by the current White House. And not that Trump will be any better, to be fair. Not that JD Vance is any champion of the Gazan people either, which we'll get to in a little while. But it's just kind of remarkable how you would come out and say, well, the one thing we can't do is allow Trump to become the victim after he literally just took a bullet in the ear.
Well, and this is where this entire conversation is absurd. Don Jr. got a little press going back and forth with an MSNBC goon who asked him about, well, are you going to bring back the
child
separation policy
at the border? Yeah.
And he said, well, that would, are you going to ask them that? Are you going to ask Obama that? And yeah, there's news footage of them doing investigations when Obama was president of the kids in cages. There's literally footage of kids in cages from news reports from the Obama era. Say all the worst things about Donald Trump are true. You're running the author of mass incarceration with his brains leaking out his ears. You are running an author of the Patriot Act. You are running the person who is responsible for not being able to discharge your student loans in bankruptcy. You are running somebody who is still lying about having been involved in civil rights marches. He just did it again a month or two ago. He has repeatedly had to apologize for saying, and then he'll do it again. That's who your candidate is. So any premise that you're going after Donald Trump extending into the lawfare realm, look at the paper trail around the Biden family's economic doings. And if you had anything like that fact pattern attached to the Trump family, it would be the subject of multiple investigations being driven by Democrats. People see this. Most people are not MSNBC Kool-Aid drinking Democrat Party partisans. And, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying, oh, well, Donald Trump, he's squeaky clean. You know what? He's cleaner than they are, which is not saying much. It's setting a very low bar. But if you look at the Biden family business over several decades, if you look at what Biden has done in his political life, what are you talking about? These prosecutions against Donald Trump are clearly selective prosecutions, and everybody sees it. Now he survives an assassination attempt. You're going to say, well, what I worry about is that we're not going to be able to peddle the same bullshit we've been peddling for years.
Right.
You've been comparing this rather vulgar New York businessman, this impulsive, childish, womanizing reality show star, as the second coming of Adolf Hitler? Really? And you don't see why no one takes you people seriously when you speak anymore. The best thing that could happen for this country is that you guys are muzzled for the next several months so that we can actually have a debate about policy that doesn't involve visions of brown shirts that I personally do not believe is justified by the facts.
Well, on the policy front, what was infuriating about that question, I forget the guy's name, the short, skinny guy with eyeglasses. He asked Don Jr., are you going to bring back child separation at the border? Look, if Don Jr. were not, a coked out sociopathic Nepo baby, he would have fired back. Well, the number of children who were ultimately not reunited with their parents, last I checked, was a little over 500, which is horrible, obviously, and it's a crime, and I think that should be investigated. But the number of children killed in Gaza was more than that in the first week after October 7th. So you're going to bring this back to family separation and a concern for children. Look at how far back they have to go to child separation policy. Now, if Don Jr. were a better guy, and he's not, he would have said that. You had children being killed.
He can't, given Trump's position on it.
I mean, I don't think he particularly wants to. You have children being killed, not just separated from their family, killed at a faster rate in Gaza than in the concentration camps. That was literally, statistically true. It might be statistically true right now for all we know. We don't know because they're not keeping official counts anymore.
Right.
But in the first few months, when we had official documentation of this, children were being killed in Gaza at a faster rate than in the Nazi camps. And it takes until Donald Trump runs again for you to think that you're going to get a slick line in here. Hey, are you going to bring back child separation at the border? That's the thing. You know, they mentioned Ukraine in regard to JD Vance's pick, because JD Vance is obviously not hawkish on Ukraine. And it occurred to me, you know, the Ukraine war is the first policy initiative the Democrats have supported in years. Like, they haven't really supported any policy initiative since Obamacare, really. They haven't tried to do anything since Obamacare. This was the first real aim of theirs, was to start World War III. And so that's why on a policy level, you can't have the debate, because the Democrats have no policy. All right.
Well, the CARES Act. The CARES Act.
Well, that was that was under Trump, was the CARES Act.
Oh, yeah, but they
voted for it. They supported it. But that wasn't like their drive. It wasn't our mission to push this through against those bad Republicans. That's what the Ukraine war is now. It's like their ACA. JD Vance is in a My Chemical Romance cover band. Is that true? I mean, it wouldn't shock me.
That would be pretty funny.
Wouldn't shock me. Oh, hey, Jimmy Dore's here on your personal account. Has Brianna rebooked yet? No, she has not. Oh, but we should actually mention. We forgot. We should have mentioned this at the top. Pardon me. Yesterday afternoon, we recorded about an hour-long interview with Lee Fong, which will be premiering tonight on the YouTube channel at 8 p.m. So that's tonight at 8 p.m. on the YouTube channel. I think I can get it to premiere on Rumble at the same time. So I think we'll be able to simulcast it, or at least have two premieres running at the same time. So whether you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, that's about an hour. And then we're going to be on our friend RB Ham, just started a Rumble channel. Those of you guys who hang out for the Q&As and patrons, you know RB. We're going to be on his show at 9 o'clock tonight, and that's on Rumble. That's RB Ham Beyond the Pale. So you'll get a double dose of us again tonight.
Again.
The Fong interview's pre-recorded. That's a premiere, not a live stream. But then we're going to be live with RB at night.
That is a premiere. As you know, we have started to pre-tape this. The night we were supposed to do the interview with Brianna Joy Gray, she was performing with her Josie and the Pussycats cover band.
Yes.
Most people don't know she does that. And we said, we should just start pre-taping interviews. It'll give us more flexibility for our guests. We'll be able to schedule them at a regular time. So tonight, 8 o'clock, that's the plan. Tuesday nights at 8, interviews drop. We have another one lined up for next week. That's a very big guest. We'll announce that when we get closer.
Yeah, probably Thursday or Sunday. Yep. Alrighty. Cool Blue. Thanks for the $4.99. Shelley Duvall's best performance was in Robert Altman's Three Women, which won her Best Actress from Cannes and LA Film Critics. Missed Oscar nod. Interesting. Wow, Cool Blue's got the trivia. You got the trivia. I have not seen that either. Shelley D. Time Bandits, 1982. Michael Palin. Thank you, American Disaster. That's Nina. Thank you very much. We'll take some Rumble rants here. Nocturnal Human. Can I make a request for some DD thermoses or water bottles? I would use that for work. That might be good. I'll see if our merch shop can do that. Although I'm thinking about switching merch shops.
I think there's potential in the scumbag douchebag tote bag.
Yeah, there is too. And I like the water. I mean, who doesn't need a water bottle? And now what they're charging for water bottles these days, it's crazy. We could sell cheap water bottles. But we might switch merch vendors. I don't like this merch vendor. It takes them forever to ship. Sometimes the orders don't go through. Yeah, it's really not a good situation.
Why didn't we go with like Cafe Press or something?
Maybe we can. I went with this because it was the easiest to link to the YouTube channel, so it's the easiest for people to find. But I might have to switch it up. Morning Blow and Miko want a three-way with Twump. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Nocturnal Human. I sent a thing 2 hours ago. Sorry if it was caught by Jake's app. I couldn't wait to give you money. Here's my first $2 thing. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's see here. They're preempting Judge Judy for the RNC convention, so I guess I'll watch YouTube blokes. LOL, just kidding. Love you guys. Thank you. Yeah, Judge Judy, she was taken off the air too. She must be pissed off. If you don't need me here, then I quit. I won't show up anymore. Yeah, that would be Norm should date Judge Judy. That would be good. They should
that would be a funny couple.
Imagine Norm Finkelstein and Judge Judy got married. That'd be hilarious. Cheers. All I got today in East Berlin. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassam. Appreciate that very much.
That's the problem with this space, man. No reality shows.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, folks. Well, Donald Trump on a roll. What can we say? On a roll. Judge tosses Trump documents case, ruling prosecutor was unlawfully appointed. A U.S. judge in Florida on Monday dismissed the criminal case accusing Donald Trump of illegally keeping classified documents after leaving office, handing the Republican former president another major legal victory as he seeks a return to the White House. U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon, who was appointed to the bench by Trump, ruled that special counsel Jack Smith, who was leading the prosecution, was unlawfully appointed to his role. I'm sorry. It's just fucking like what an avalanche of shit for Democrats like these past couple of weeks. Like how, like if you're invested in the, if you're a Biden supporter, I mean, you just got to be feeling so impossibly depressed now. Like just one thing after another after another. Like this is the worst string of political fortune I think I've ever witnessed. I don't think I've ever witnessed the campaign just implode like this. This is like that Coen Brothers movie. What's the movie? A Serious Man? Is that what it's called? About the guy who just has that string of impossible luck. And then he gets the bad medical diagnosis at the end, and the tornado bears down on the school.
I don't think I ever saw it.
You never saw A Serious Man? The Coen Brothers? Oh, you would love it. You would love that movie. That is right up your alley. Yeah, it's just about this guy who runs into some curse, and that's the Democrats right now. Just like every possible thing, one after the other. Who's leading the prosecution? Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed to his role and did not have the authority to bring the case. The judge found that U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, who named Smith in 2022 to oversee investigations involving Trump, did not have the authority to appoint a federal officer with the kind of prosecutorial power wielded by special counsel Smith. Cannon also found that Smith's investigation has been improperly funded through a permanent and unlimited fund Congress set aside in the 1980s for independent investigations. It marked another blockbuster legal triumph for Trump. Prosecutors are likely to appeal Cannon's ruling. Courts in other cases have repeatedly upheld the ability of the U.S. Justice Department to appoint special counsels to handle certain politically sensitive investigations. Trump, in a social media post, said Cannon's ruling should be just the first step and called for the dismissal of all 4 criminal cases against him. Let us come together to end all weaponization of our justice system, Trump wrote. So, yeah, you got a little bit into this in the last segment. Mechanics of this being what they are, it's just one more W that this guy has put on the board. I've never seen a run like this. I've never seen it.
They're trying to get even the hush money ruling thrown out based on the Supreme Court finding of executive responsibility and liability.
The sentencing's already been delayed. It should have happened by now. It was supposed to happen on the 11th.
Right. They were considering throwing that entire case out, which I'm sorry, it would just be hilarious. The libs were so joyful about the 34 felony.
Yeah.
And this is why I made that comparison on Jimmy's show to the Hannibal movie. Trump really benefits from his enemies. His enemies are so repulsive that you root for him. You root for him because it is so clear. And I think this is a big part of why they keep losing. Isn't it obvious they have chosen to weaponize the justice system against this man? And frankly, when you look beneath the hood, not for any good reason at all. They don't really think he's Hitler. That's for the retail investors of politics, the schmucks the morons, the people who watch Morning Joe, the people who read the New York Times op-ed and don't realize the people who write those op-eds are laughing at them and wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, the people who think they're insiders because they read some shit in Newsweek that was written in this very insidery Washington camaraderie tone. That's who that's for. They don't think he's Hitler. They never thought he was a Russian plant. They voted to expand his spying powers while they were saying that he was a Manchurian candidate. They don't believe any of this. They have chosen to build him up into this incredible existential threat. They tried to do it with every other Republican. Trump, with his mean tweets and some of his less well-considered statements, was much easier to hang all of this on. Now, none of this is to say, what do you mean? All of his policies are great. Donald Trump's great. I'm not saying that. But their issues with Donald Trump are not the issues that they claim to have. Their issues are all the wrong issues. They're all the things that you might actually like about him, like less war. Oh,
right.
Maybe he'll actually try. He made noises in this direction last time too, as we'll see. Picking JD Vance is a sign that he might be going back to that original 2016 Steve Bannon run campaign roots of doing something for working people and common people. He didn't the first time around. Maybe he will the second time around. But the issues that they have with him are those things. Those are the things. If he actually went ahead and followed through on the best things that he talks about, that's their issue. The worst things he wants to do, on the cultural level, yes, they have some opposition. On the economic level, tax cuts for rich people, they don't care about any of that. And they certainly don't believe he's Hitler. He shows a little bit of independence of thought on the military-industrial complex. That is 90% of their issue with him.
Yeah, one thing that was very telling, and we're going to get to it in the next segment, so I'll just tease it now. It was really interesting when the Teamsters president was giving his speech, and he criticized the extremes in both parties for shutting out unions. Now, what he means by extreme Republican is the Mitt Romney wing.
Right.
But that's who these people think of as the moderates.
They have no problem with a guy like Mitt Romney.
Yeah, they have a completely distorted, shouldn't say distorted, it's different. It's fundamentally different. A different understanding of who's extreme and who's sensible.
Exactly.
And their problems with Trump are about what's sensible about Trump. That's not to say there aren't massive problems with Trump. Obviously there are. But their biggest problem with Trump, I brought this up on Jimmy's show the other day, I don't hold out any hope that he's going to broker peace, with Netanyahu. I mean, there's an off chance he's a wild card. It might happen. I don't even trust him to wrap the Ukraine war up. I really don't. I mean, he started talking like he was going to, and then he started talking, well, it's going to be a loan and not a gift. I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. But the very act of engaging in some sort of even superficial diplomacy with people like Kim Jong-un, going to North Korea, shaking his hand, that soccer ball exchange, that Helsinki conference with Putin. Remember the meltdown? Amongst the liberal media and some of the more establishment-aligned right-wing media over that. He accepted a gift from Putin. Like, the fact that I think Trump, whether he likes other world leaders or doesn't, I think he sees them as agents to be negotiated with. And I think in establishment Washington, anyone outside the G7 is to be strong arms. They are to be bullied around. They are not to be negotiated with. You don't shake their hand. You don't exchange gifts. You bully them around. That's our MO. And he did some of that. He assassinated the Iranian general. Like, he was not a dove. But he didn't give them the whole thing. I mean, that's the only thing that you really look at. That's the only determination to make. He wasn't that hostile to them. He just took a few steps out of line, which is more than they'll tolerate, apparently.
That's it. If you want to see what they wanted from Trump, go back and look at the news coverage the night he bombed Syria.
Right.
They all got out the knee pads. Van Jones, he became the president tonight. If he had just stayed in that vein, they'd love him. They'd love him. These are people who get weak in the knees when war criminal George W. Bush shares a candy with Michelle Obama at a funeral. They get weak in the knees. George Bush is acceptable in polite society, and Donald Trump isn't. Their issue is that he didn't create enough war. And as you point out, it's not even like he was a dove. No. You do not completely toe the line on what the defense contractors want, and you are a dangerous agent of a foreign power. That's how they're going to paint you.
Exactly. For fork's sake, please don't change the logo. It ain't broken, don't fix it. Maybe a little larger script to read better, but I beg you don't change. You're not going to make it better. Courage. Well, thank you for the donation and for the advice.
How do you know we're not going to make it better? That's very defeatist.
Yeah. I like the parchment paper just because that's our theme already. So I do think we can build on it. And yeah, I think a larger font. I mean, I can kind of dig that. Like keep the general aesthetic, but just make it a little more pro. I mean, I did this one in 2019. This is literally the same logo we've had since we just started the audio show.
His kids did it.
Yeah, my kids did it. Right. Actually, I created this before they were even born. First audio episode I recorded was before they were born. Kenman G, 3 Women, a Masterpiece, next to Nashville, Political Assassination. Yep. Altman's best and one of the best of the 70s. Yeah, Nashville is
I've seen Nashville. Obviously, yeah. I've seen MASH, but I never saw that.
Did you see his British Upstairs, Downstairs movie was excellent, too. That was one of the last ones he ever made.
I did see that.
What's it called?
I did see that.
Gosford Park. Gosford Park, that's it.
Yes.
That was excellent. That was really good. When it came out, A Serious Man was called the most Jewish film since Yentl. I believe it. Yes, a very, very Jewish film. Yes, but good one. Definitely a good one. And that is a metaphor for the Biden campaign now. Let's see here.
All right. Well, hey, look. If anyone wants to send us a logo redesign, go ahead.
Yeah, do it.
Might as well just say it now. Yeah, go ahead. If it's good, we'll use it.
Yeah, of course. Have you seen Joy Ann Reid's continual spaz out? She must have brought a kid to sacrifice a Bohemian Grove to still be allowed on air, it alone at the RNC after they yanked Scarborough yesterday. Well, they put her and all the others on. I mean, Maddow, they had Maddow, they had Nicole
is
Wallace,
where they have a point.
Jen Psaki. Yeah.
I mean, Joy Reid. If you're going to put Joy Reid on, why not put Joe and Meek on?
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Like, what are they going to say that's worse than what Joy Reid would say?
Yeah, they're not going to say anything. Like, if they're worried about their guests, just tell them, hey, you can't have, I guess, Donnie Deutsch is liable to say something insane. So, all right, so don't have him on. All right, you can't have him on. But, yeah, they'd have been fine behind the mic, I think. Love you guys. Keep up the good work. Thank you, yuppies. Appreciate that. Just joining, but why do you guys think Vice JD? Well, we're going to get to that. That's our next segment. So thank you. Thank you. Made it just in time for that segment. Appreciate that. Let's see here. What do we got here? His Highness, for those unaware, Rome from RBN is in the hospital. Please, everyone, send him some love. Oh, wow.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
That's horrible.
What's wrong?
I don't know.
Happened?
Yeah, what happened? Do you know what happened, or did they just say he was in the hospital? That's terrible. Yes. Well, yes, everybody do send him some love, and I will. I'll have to text Nick after. I don't have Rome's number. I've never met Rome, actually. We've never been on a stream. So I've never actually met Rome, but I have Nick's number. I'll see what's going on after. Thank you for that alert. And yes, good thoughts to Rome, obviously. Nocturnal Human, I don't care about a lesser evil, but Trump is not the bigger asshole. Dems being themselves are his best propaganda. Yes,
absolutely.
He's lucky in his enemies. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Where are we at? JD Vance. That's right. All right, folks. So the Veep stakes are over. There was a short list forming over the past few weeks in which we saw, names like Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek Ramaswamy kind of get erased. And then the question was, is Trump going to pick a real establishment stooge like Marco Rubio or Tim Scott, or is he going to double down on MAGA by picking JD Vance? And he answered that question. Trump chooses Senator JD Vance, a former critic, as his vice presidential pick. Donald Trump has chosen Senator JD Vance of Ohio as his running mate, selecting a rising star in the Republican Party and previously outspoken Trump critic who in recent years has closely aligned himself with the former president. Trump announced his pick Monday on Truth Social. After lengthy deliberation and thought and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator JD Vance of the great state of Ohio, Trump wrote. He praised Vance's education, credentials, and business experience. If elected in November, Vance, 39, would be one of the youngest vice presidents in history. He is a relative political newcomer, winning his Senate seat in 2022 after rising to prominence as an author who wrote a best-selling memoir. His selection adds a staunch defender of Trump's movement to the ticket, and some Republican observers said it could help Trump solidify his base of white working-class voters, particularly in the upper Midwest. Vance grew up in a steel mill community in Ohio in a family beset by drug addiction and poverty, which he chronicled in his book Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and culture in crisis. He served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, including a 6-month deployment to Iraq, before studying political science and philosophy at Ohio State University and attending Yale Law School. He went on to work at a large corporate law firm and then as a principal at billionaire Peter Thiel's investment firm in San Francisco. The Ohio Republican has embraced a more populist direction for the GOP under Trump, embracing his America First policies and offshoots the former president and his followers have championed. Vance has vehemently criticized U.S. aid to Ukraine. He has taken on culture war issues, introducing a ban on gender-affirming care for minors. He has also praised authoritarian Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban for some smart decisions, echoing Trump's appreciation for strongmen. I'm going to assume he praised his stance on Ukraine. That's what I'm going to assume is their big problem. And we'll see some more evidence for that in a bit.
He might, knowing him, a lot of them are praising. There's Orban, right? The tax break policy for
the children, yeah, for having kids, yeah.
A lot of them talk about that.
Well, it's funny because Vance actually proposed giving parents the right to vote as many times as children they have. So if you have 2 kids, you get to vote twice. If you have 3 kids, you get to vote 3 times. That was a policy.
Well, you like that?
Yeah, I'd take over the world at this rate. Yeah. Be a one-party state.
Keaton's gonna be sporting a red hat in no time.
Yeah, right. We'll be unstoppable. I'll be the swing vote that everybody has to come to, right? As I go, so goes the nation. On abortion, another focal point of this year's election, Vance had previously argued against exceptions to abortion restrictions for rape and incest, but he has since moderated his pitch after losing an Ohio abortion ballot measure, acknowledging that Republicans are mistrusted on the issue and need to find middle ground, putting him in alignment with Trump. While Vance is now one of Trump's most steadfast allies, he was previously critical. He wrote in an Atlantic opinion piece in July 2016 that Trump was cultural heroin for the masses. He makes some feel better for a bit, he wrote, but he cannot fix what ails them, and one day they'll realize it. He declared Trump unfit for our nation's highest office in an August 2016 New York Times op-ed headlined, "Why Trump's Anti-War Message Resonates with White America." Vance also sent a message that year to his law school roommate, Josh McLaurin, saying that he went back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad and might even prove useful, or that he's America's Hitler. McLaurin had reached out to Vance about writing an opinion piece together at the time. I never could have dreamed during those exchanges in 2016 that he would end up being one of the principal reinforcers of Trumpism only a few years later, said McLaurin, who is now a Democratic state senator in Georgia. Well, I was back and forth as to whether I thought this was the right pick. Our friend Anish Shivani wrote a piece on his Substack arguing that he was, and that kind of convinced me. And if you look here, this tweet here, for those asking why JD Vance, Trump told us his logic in the announcement. Trump said he would give the campaign strength in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And if you look at the electoral map there, Vance from Ohio right in the center, he gives him that push, that boost in the upper Midwest, which if you look at the electoral map, Trump winning Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada still only gets him to 268. Now, if you look in Nebraska, there's the red state with the blue square in the middle. This is why, if we really want to nerd out, I could tell you that district might end up being very important, or at least a few days ago, it was reasonable to think that. Given the trajectory of the race now, I think he'll have no problem winning.
Yeah, I don't.
At least 2 out of those 3 gray states, if not all of them, and maybe even Minnesota as well. But if he gets that red, if he turns that middle district in Nebraska red, that would get him to 269 without the upper Midwest, which would give him the presidency, assuming the Republicans keep the House, which they almost certainly will. And so that map being what it is, the way to shut this election down, the way to lock this election up would be to improve your standing as much as you can in those upper Midwestern states. And Vance, I think, is the right guy to do that from a political standpoint this time. And also, you know, this is one of those picks that really does lend itself to the belief that Trump, as enigmatic as he is, does have a political vision, right? I mean, it's easy to go back and forth on that because he'll say something that puts his thumb in the eye of the deep state one day, and then he'll signal to them that he's going to play ball the next day. He is definitely a massive egomaniac. And so there's this question, does this guy really care about being a movement leader? Does he really care about reorienting the politics of the country? Or is he just in this for the glory of a second term?
He just likes the crowds. Right?
Exactly. Is that what it's about? But a pick like Vance shows he's more interested in
his
grooming
legacy.
is a weird word, but he's more interested in setting up an ideological successor that is more in line with his vision for the party and the country than, say, a Rubio or a Tim Scott. I mean, Marco Rubio is a ridiculous option. The only thing that signals is that he's not really the threat to the system that he says he is, and that's a way to get a lot of the sort of affluent white moderates who have been going to the Democrats back into his camp. This is a play for the Rust Belt. This is a play for the disaffected, voter who came out for him in droves in 2016. This is a base play, and I think it makes the most sense for him. I do. Tulsi and Ramaswamy, they'd have been more useful in terms of expanding the party and sort of eating the Democrats' lunch by diversifying the Republican base. But ultimately, it's about winning this election. It's about locking this election up. The way to do that is to lock up those Midwestern states. Vance definitely gives you the best chance to do that. And he's a young guy. He's definitely malleable, as we've seen. He started out a Trump critic, publishing op-eds in The Atlantic and the New York Times, and now 8 years later, here he is. That's the plan. Now, the downside to Vance is that he's green. He's a political newcomer. Running for president's the hardest thing in the world to do from a political standpoint. There are a lot of people who look great until they run for president. Ron DeSantis, Exhibit A, right? So you don't know how Vance fares in 2028. He could step out there and shit the bed. That's a risk. But of the options on the table, this definitely makes you believe, more than any of those other picks would, that Trump has a vision for the future. And Vance embodies that more than any of those other alternatives. And so for that reason, and the fact that mathematically he gives you the biggest boost in those 3 key states, I think it was the best pick for him.
Well, I think picking Vance, he's signaling probably Hinkle for Secretary of State. He's clearly going full MAGA communist here.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hinkle will be a good press secretary, actually.
Actually, he would. He's probably not much younger than George Stephanopoulos was when he did it for Clinton.
Yeah.
We were discussing this online. I wrote a couple of articles dealing with this theme. Hey, the bases of the parties have switched. It used to be that lawyers, doctors, you assumed those were Republicans. Professional class people were Republicans. When Johnson ran against Goldwater, the ad everyone knows is the nuclear ad, the Daisy ad, I think they call it.
Yeah.
But there was actually another ad that was aimed at those PMCs of their time that was this very buttoned down, very 50s glasses professional guy saying, you know, I just don't trust Goldwater. I just don't like the way that he speaks, right? And it was aimed at those people. Now those people are all Democrats. Those reasonable white moderates that Johnson commercial was aimed at, they're all in the Democratic Party now. Their old blue-collar base, as almost friend of show Thomas Frank often points out, is in the Republican Party. And that is very painful for Democrats to admit. And we're seeing it more and more. The people of color who are moving to the Republican Party, it's mostly they're working class people. The Republican Party, unlike today's Democrats, there was a really interesting exchange that was making the rounds between Anna and Cenk about Trump, where Anna took a position I agree with, that Trump actually listens to his base, that he actually listens to his voters, that he will actually change positions based on what he gets back from them. Democrats don't do that. Fuck you, peasants. What do you think you have a say here? Oh, that's adorable. You watched Morning Joe. Now you think you know something. Right? So eventually it was inevitable, having this blue-collar working class base and being a party that's more responsive to its voters, that their economics were going to start to shift in a direction that traditionally we have associated with Democrats. While Democrats, their base is Wall Street. They'll offer a few crumbs here and there, but in the end, Wall Street is who they serve. They are the old Republican Party. You're seeing, it's not the first time, you're seeing this flip, and it was kind of inevitable. How long could you peddle Reaganomics when your base are blue-collar workers?
Of course. So we will now take a look at MSNBC's response to the announcement of JD Vance as Trump's vice president. Who do you think this helps, according to Rachel Maddow? Who do you think is very happy at this pick? So Rachel Maddow thinks
Hitler?
There's one person in the world. No, worse, even worse. It's even worse than that, Russell. Who is very happy at this pick? Let's hear from Rachel Maddow.
Vance, I think, widely considered to be the most radical choice.
Does not signal that Trump is trying to soften any edges. And the only person who was more excited than JD Vance this afternoon was Vladimir Putin.
Sorry, I forgot it was McCaskill
I am
who said
convinced
Putin,
that
not
Claire
Maddow.
McCaskill is the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood in disguise.
Yeah, exactly. It does look like that. The wolf dressed as the grandmother.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
All right, so I smeared Maddow by accident there. I forgot. It wasn't her that said Putin. It was McCaskill said Putin. Much apologies to Rachel Maddow.
And the only person who was more excited than JD Vance this afternoon was Vladimir Putin. They dropped balloons from the sky where Putin was hanging out this afternoon, because JD Vance has even said he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine.
Oh, my.
Come
Is that
closer,
so?
the better to see you, my dear.
So as we mentioned earlier in the stream, their opposition to Trump, the reason they fearmonger about Trump as much as they do is not because of what there is to legitimately fear about Trump, but it's what there is about Trump that appeals to that certain populism, which they will brand nationalism to try and make it sound as scary as they can. I'm not saying none of that's there, but the populism is what bothers them. Not the nationalism, not the xenophobia, none of that. It's the populism. It's the populism that has them very uneasy. And our friend Lee Fong, who we interviewed yesterday afternoon, just came out with a piece apparently last night about this very thing that, Russell, I guess you're going to read from.
Yes. Lee, as you will see in our interview tonight, he's one of the best investigative reporters around, and boom, he had this ready to go. A very interesting and fair article about JD Vance. He doesn't shy away from pointing out that he does have some very extreme conservative positions. But when in keeping with what we were saying about their issues with Trump, it's the same with JD Vance. The issues they have with JD Vance are probably the things that he's best on.
Can you believe he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine?
Can you believe he wants to have negotiations with Russia?
Can you?
Russia! I gotta say, as an Xer who remembers the Cold War, it's just amazing to me that we're back here again with Russia. We thought that was over. We thought that was over with the rehabilitation of the Russians in the movies. Right? The Russians became like our allies and friends, and we're back. Far from a partisan warrior, Vance has praised the most populist economic figures in the Biden administration, including Lena Khan, the Federal Trade Commission chair, who has led a push against Silicon Valley monopolies and private equity abuses. Vance has also said that Jared Bernstein, the head of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, known as an outspoken proponent of labor unions and middle-class policies, is, quote, one of the best people we could have gotten. He has spoken highly of the Biden administration's efforts to bring back semiconductor manufacturing, though he is sharply critical of the set-asides for diversity in the program. I got news for you. Most people don't like that. Not only white people, most people don't. Vance works well with a diverse set of lawmakers on Capitol Hill. He frequently co-sponsors corporate accountability legislation with Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Quote, we actually want to make change, Warren told Politico, remarking on her work with Vance to prevent executives from bailed out banks from reaping huge bonuses. His record shows a relatively high degree of cooperation with Senate Democrats, particularly on populist issues for enhancing oversight over corporations. And he's got some points here of some of what Vance has done in the Senate. Vance co-sponsored legislation with Senator Raphael Warnock, Warren, and Sanders to cap out-of-pocket expenses for insulin at $35 or 25% of a plan's negotiated price for Americans insured with private health insurance.
They've surrendered to the communists.
Yeah. It turns out he's right. Turns out Scarborough was right about something for once. Yeah. They have surrendered to the communists. Vance and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse introduced legislation that reshapes decades of corporate tax law, forcing corporate mergers of firms beyond $500 million in revenue to immediately pay capital gains taxes on shares earned through such deals. Now, I'm sorry, listen. If a Democratic Party that includes figures like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as well, ever pushed a policy like that, I'd eat my hat. They've been completely captured by Wall Street. I mean, frankly, it's not that the Republicans are salt of the earth, but it does demonstrate Vance showing some independence from that still entrenched Reaganomics establishment of his own party. And clearly the momentum in that party is shifting in that direction, whereas that's not the case with the Democrats. The agents that we sent into the Democrats to pull it in that direction, like AOC, they're running around trying to protect Biden as his brains leak out his ears.
Well, yeah, and to really drive that point home, it was AOC and the squad members who came up with that bullshit workaround amendment to the railroad bill that Joe Biden forced through when the railroad workers were striking. That's the one Ryan Grimm said was the thing they did at the behest of the railroad workers, when that was absolutely not the case. We interviewed the very railroad workers that he was talking about there.
Yes.
And so we know for a fact that he was wrong about that. And that AOC and the squad basically used that as an opportunity to show them, hey, superficially, look, we tried, knowing it was going to fail. Vance was one of only a very small handful of Republicans. I think it was only 8 Republicans. Like I said, I'm not trying to give the Republican Party credit here. He was one of a very small minority of Republicans who supported the sick leave that they were trying to get.
Right, right. Vance co-sponsored legislation with Senator Dick Durbin to require price transparency and Medicare coverage status on certain pharmaceutical advertisements. Vance has worked with Senator Sherrod Brown on legislation to tighten inspection requirements and hike penalties for rail cars carrying chemicals in response to the Norfolk Southern derailment disaster in East Palestine, Ohio last year. Vance co-sponsored Senator Tim Kaine's legislation to repeal the authorization of the use of military force in Iraq. I guess that's a symbolic gesture at this point, but okay. Vance and Senator Tammy Baldwin sponsored legislation to prevent the licensing of government-funded advanced technology to foreign corporations. The bill was sponsored in light of revelations that specialized battery technology developed had been licensed to a Chinese firm. Vance was one of the first modern Republicans to walk the picket lines in support of the United Auto Worker union strike for higher wages and benefits last year. He has repeatedly savaged the neoconservatism establishment, claiming that they have entrenched America in unwinnable forever wars that serve no strategic interest for the country. Vance's calls for peace negotiations with Ukraine place him far from the center of the D.C. establishment and closer to the fringes of both parties. Over the last 2 years, it has only been the House Progressive Caucus and House Freedom Caucus, along with a few mavericks in the Senate, such as Vance, who have openly demanded talks with Russia to end the war. Speaking to American Compass last year, Vance explained his belief that market forces have failed the American family and that policymakers should consider tax penalties for corporations that ship jobs overseas and subsidies for businesses that restore the nation's manufacturing base. During the discussion, Vance scorned the market-based incentives that drive the nation's best neuroscientists to seek lucrative jobs by making, quote, highly addictive predictive algorithms for Facebook rather than helping to produce a cure for Alzheimer's, and the best mathematicians to work for quantitative hedge funds rather than developing next-generation fission energy. Now that is some MAGA communism right there. Like, that is discussing an intervention in the marketplace that you haven't heard from Republicans maybe ever, even before they went where they are now. Quote, the traditional free market response to this is, well, clearly this is what people value more if they're willing to pay 3 times as much, noted Vance. Instead, he said he favors more economic intervention, an industrial policy that recognizes where we need to direct our country's resources to solving real problems. Some of his anti-monopolist overtures have been beyond the limelight and carefully crafted to impact power. Earlier this year, he filed an amicus brief into an Ohio case to classify Google as a common carrier utility. This designation would open the company up to much more stringent regulations and penalties over free speech concerns. That would be amazing, because if you notice, if you've been in this space for a long time, when you Google for news articles, you remember you used to get Common Dreams, you used to get Sheer Post, you don't anymore. You have to, maybe in the sixth page of the search, you can find that now. In the Senate, he said he has heard the same tired slogans justifying the escalation of the Ukraine war, positioning it as a conflict about democracy versus tyranny, the same arguments that were made for the Middle East wars of the War on Terror era. Quote, I do not think it is in America's interest to continue to fund an effectively never-ending war in Ukraine. During the speech, he also argued that the old thinking of the party came from its leadership, calling out Senator Mitch McConnell, who he said has been wrong about nearly every foreign position he's held since his election in 1984, the year of Vance's birth. Vance also argued that the trade policies of the old Republican establishment, centered around offshoring American manufacturing to maximize corporate profits, had weakened America, making it reliant on its enemies and unable to make medicine or munitions. Quote, the neoconservative approach to China is sort of the dumbest of all possible solutions. They want the Chinese to manufacture all of our stuff, and they also want to go to war with China. It's a good point.
They've surrendered to the communists.
See? None of this suggests Vance is a liberal or a progressive. He has supported a harsh crackdown on student protests on college campuses and declined to sponsor legislation that would even the playing field for workers attempting to organize labor unions. He has said he supports Medicare negotiating for lower drug prices and efforts to import cheaper prescription drugs, but has not signed onto any legislation to make these promises a reality. So, hey, yeah, supposedly he's moderating his position on abortion. He had a very extreme, the most extreme position on abortion. So not to say this guy's the second coming of FDR. There's a reason he's in the Republican Party. But does he represent a major shift in the direction of what Trump's 2016 campaign purported to represent, but did not follow through with legislatively? Certainly. And as you point out, Trump is making a big statement, especially given that he can only serve one more term, about the direction he wants the party to go in.
Yes, well, that's what makes this such an innovation, because he's only there for 4 more years, which means now JD Vance is essentially maybe not the presumptive nominee, but just about as close to the presumptive nominee as you can get for 2028. He is going to be running as Trump's second term, if you will.
Right.
And the fact that he went in this direction with a candidate like that shows that there is some sort of prudential wisdom. You know, this is the thing I never really understood about the Democrats. This is what makes them just so impossibly stupid at the end of the day is, look, whatever your ideology is, when you see material conditions, right, to be really communist, to go full MAGA communist about this, when you see material conditions evolving, don't you realize that for the sake of maintaining power, for the sake of actually staying in power and being in the driver's seat when it comes to steering policy, you have to give a little bit of that ideology up. Like, now that the Republicans are taking in working class voters and voters from all over the world, in terms of, like, you know, a lot of the immigrants who are coming here are voting GOP now, right? As you're getting more diverse from both a nationality perspective and a class perspective, you're going to have to, if you want that to stick, you're going to have to tweak those policy dials to accommodate these new voters. Whereas the Democrats just don't. It's the same thing over and over again. We think climate change is real. They don't. We believe in a woman's right to choose. They don't. Right? We're for gay marriage. They're not. At this point, I don't even know how true that is. I think most Republicans are pretty much resigned to that at this point. But the point is, irrespective of what you feel about the merits of those views, there's no willingness to actually change. That's why all Biden can do at the debate, assuming he had his faculties about him, was try to nail him on January 6th, try to tell him how ashamed of himself he should be for saying that the veterans were suckers and losers. What are you talking? You're not talking about anything that has to do with anybody's lives here. And they are willing to make pivots in that direction. And I say pivots instead of moves because time will tell how they actually move on these things. Right? I mean, Trump ran a very populist campaign in 2016.
He did.
He governed like Mitt Romney, who shook, Putin's hand, basically.
Right.
That's what we got. So time will tell. And obviously, on the Israel issue, as you could see on the campus speech, horrible. That whole issue, horrible. They're all horrible. Every candidate from every party that's viable this year is horrible on that issue. And that's horrible, but that is what it is. If we're analyzing the wisdom of this as a political choice, you have to look at a willingness to redefine the party, to grab the party by the horns, as Donald Trump has done in naming JD Vance his successor. He is empowering what is still ultimately, numbers-wise, a minority faction amongst elected Republicans. Only 8 Republicans, I believe that's the number, 8 supported the sick leave for the railroad workers, and Vance was one of them, right? So the easy thing to do would have been to pick a Rubio or a Scott. You probably save yourself some shrapnel in the ear if you do it that way too, right? I mean, that's the easy way. This is the hard way. But I want to play a piece of video here. We're going to talk about Teamsters President Sean O'Brien's speech to the RNC in the next segment. But here he is talking to Fox News about JD Vance.
I mean, JD Vance, the short time that we've worked together, I mean, he's been great on Teamster issues. He is co-sponsored an airline manufacturing bill that addresses outsourcing of critical airline maintenance to China. He's also supported paid sick leave for our railroad workers. If you remember that situation a couple of years ago, where they weren't getting sick time, he stepped right up. He's also been very vocal and supportive of holding employers accountable who try and skirt their obligation under an independent contractor model known as DSP. So he's been right there on all our issues. We've publicly stated it. And look, at this day and age, there's nothing better than having a U.S. Marine represented as a vice president candidate.
Okay, so look at the conversation. Look at the difference in conversation between what's happening on Fox News and what's happening on MSNBC. Fox News, this guy's talking about, well, he, has, stuck up for workers. He tried to crack down on employers who were taking advantage of, some independent contractor stipulation. They're talking about issues that affects ordinary people there. On MSNBC, what do we hear?
Trump is trying to soften any edges. And the only person who was more excited than JD Vance this afternoon was Vladimir Putin.
Right. So on MSNBC, on the supposedly left-wing network, they're talking about how, well, Putin's really happy, doesn't care about Ukraine. And on the right-wing network, they have the Teamsters president saying how JD Vance stood up for workers and how they're happy with his record. That shows you the realignment that is taking place and how the selection of Vance as the successor of the MAGA movement is an acknowledgement of that. And like I said, does it go any further than that? Time will tell. Time will tell. Never give a politician credit for anything until they earn it. And as far as I could see, time will tell whether he earns it or not. But that is a gesture in that direction. There's no denying that.
You could not pick 2 better clips to demonstrate how much the party's rhetoric, at the very least, have inverted. Because this were 1968 and black and white, and somebody just showed you those clips, and they said, which party are each of these people from? You would have said McCaskill was the Republican, and the other network would have represented the Democrats.
Exactly.
Here they are. They're talking about labor issues and unions, and they're red baiting over here.
Exactly. Right.
This is a politics for people who can afford a politics of aesthetic gestures, who don't have dire material needs that they desperately want politicians to fix. That is a politics for people who can afford their politics to be about virtue signaling on Facebook and increasingly ginning up crazed conspiracy theories on the internet about assassinations being staged, as has been remarkable. Mehdi Hassan, look, we're not Mehdi Hassan fans here, but he is the first mainstream journalist I've seen put blue MAGA in a headline. He just wrote a whole op-ed in The Guardian about blue MAGA, about how they've become the very cultish, closed-minded, conspiratorial people that they claim to be against.
Wow. He's going to lose some subscribers over that.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to read the comment section on that article. Wow. Alrighty. Sage and Fool, thanks for the $5. Hillary Clinton used tear gas on the border when unaccompanied minors appeared. Thank you, Sage and Fool. Pardon me.
I would not be surprised if she went down there with the tear gas gun personally.
Yeah.
Seems like the kind of thing she would do for kicks on the weekends.
Oh, by the way, we're at 24:13 over here between YouTube and Twitter. Thank you for being here, folks. Hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button over on Rumble. 1532 in the Rumble chat, 2,155 in the YouTube chat, 264 on X. JD Vance is a MAGA communist. Check his wiki page under labor unions. He agrees with conservative union American Compass, who advocates for workers' councils and sectoral bargaining. Thank you.
Compass, that's the guy we were trying to have on. The Catholic. Is that where he was from?
Is that what it was? Yeah, didn't we see something about American? Yeah.
Well, there was the guy at the Dissident Dialogues who was the only thing who said anything I thought was interesting.
It's funny. A friend of mine likes American Compass, and I think knew some people there. Yes, so that does ring a bell. Jimmy Dore, thanks for the $4.99, Jimmy. Seriously, what did Brianna say? So yeah, I pulled it up. So the day after she was supposed to be on the show, she tweeted, she messaged us, "I'm really so sorry about that, guys. I promise to make it up to you." That was the last we've heard of her. We haven't heard anything.
She didn't even send garlic knots.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Still waiting.
That was the last thing she said. Since then, we messaged her that morning as soon as we got that message, saying, it's okay. We prepped segments in case your engagement ran long. What's your schedule like this week? And then we sent her a follow-up the next day, and nothing. Or no, we sent her a follow-up a week later saying, "Hey, how's next Monday?" And nothing. Yeah, so we haven't heard from her since the day after where she said, "I'm really sorry about that, guys. I promise to make it up to you." That was the last message we got from her. So it's not looking good. It's not looking
it's not looking good for whatever remaining Bree simps we might have in our audience.
I mean, she may have been offended that we explained what happened, but I had to explain what happened. Otherwise, I look like the idiot. Like if we don't say that, hey, we crossed every T and dotted our I's here, she just didn't like that. What can you do?
Look, man, I don't think this is one of the hardest things about, developing as a person, not conditioning your behavior on other people's behavior. So look, when I came out of the Dissident Dialogue saying that, like, hey, we can't, go to war with everybody that we have disagreements with, because you make it very difficult to work with them on things you agree on. And obviously, we agree very strongly on Brianna's position on Israel. She's kind of, she's taken a good position on third parties in this election. I wouldn't go so far as to call her post-duopoly, given her flirtation with Marianne in this cycle. But Brianna's an asshole.
Yeah.
She is an asshole. Like, when you look at how she's behaved with Matt Taibbi, where not only would she not admit she was wrong, she went so far as to do this batshit segment with Zaid Jilani to back it up, and then continued to put out more false attacks. I saw Taibbi responded to the last one. It was about his reporting about China and the Philippines, I think. And he said, "Brianna, what is wrong with you? I reported on this at the time." So for somebody who, as Taibbi has pointed out, she's really not a journalist. She's a commentator. She came up as a political operative. To keep smearing an actual journalist that way, and to not just take the L, at least shut up if you're not going to apologize. It won't even do that. She's an asshole. She got something from us that was beneficial to her. And I don't regret doing that. It was the right thing to do. Constantine's attacked her in a really racist and unfair way. And we had footage to demonstrate that that's what was going on. And she wanted to elevate that. So for a minute, she elevated us. But, that she got what she wanted out of it. And she has no interest in being interviewed by people who might actually ask her about why she will not apologize to Matt Taibbi. If you notice, she doesn't really go on with people like that. Maybe that occurred to her. So yeah, she's just not a very nice person from what I can see. She has some good opinions on certain things, and that's why I haven't changed my mind. I've used language in the past around that I shouldn't have used, and you don't hear me using that language now. But yeah, she's just not very nice.
Theater in the Fire just sent you a new logo to your Gmail. Hope you like it. Thank you. We'll check it out. Tom, did you guys see U.S. intel trying to link the assassination attempt to Iran now? No, did not see that. Somebody else here says U.S. is blaming Iran for Trump's assassination. Yeah, I have not seen that yet. Vance wailing wall photo says it all. Zio prostration. Yeah, no, they all gotta touch the wall and cry and act like they're crying. You know, that's like a ritual. You know, every United States politician has to go the wall. They all act like it's this fucking profound experience touching a wall. Give me a fucking break, fucking wall. Steve Paget, thanks for the $1.99. It's true. They all stand there and it's more like be dignified about it. Go there. All right, you touch the wall. All right, you go there and touch the wall if you got to touch the wall. They go there. It's just so phony. It's just so ridiculous. Vance is the best because he used to be anti-Trump. Well, that's what some people say too. Is that if you have a guy who's malleable like that, some people see that as an asset. Friend of the show, Hillary was a Goldwater girl. Yes, she was a Goldwater girl.
She was. There's that famous picture of her, right?
Yes, that's right. All right, we will do some more here. We got plenty more show today. Keaton, where is this? Who's this up here? Luis Del Cruz. You beat me to today's norm request. Here's $2 anyway. Keep up the great work, guys. Once I start my new job and my first check rolls in, I'll sign up to be a member. Thank you, Luis. Appreciate that very much. It's very kind of you.
Thank you.
Pablo Diablo, 2010. Thanks for the $5. You have to see the Topher Town music video they did on Trump called Donald Trump Enters the Studio After Getting Shot. It's hilarious on Instagram. I think that might be the one. Russell sent me, or was that the 50 Cent one? I forget. You sent us a link. I can't put the link up. That won't copyright, but I got the link. I'll check it out. Thank you, Pablo. Appreciate that. Will the Hillbilly Elegy film see a new level of success? Yeah, that film got really panned. The movie version of that got like a horrible.
I should have done this last week because everybody knew it was going to be JD Vance, or there were strong indications it was going to be him. I ordered Hillbilly Elegy. I didn't read it because on that subject, probably the best book written on this white underclass is a more academic, scholarly book called White Trash. I mean, it's for a popular audience, but it's more of a historical overview. So I didn't really feel a need to read it. I felt like I had enough of a sense of what it was going to be. Now I'm going to read it though, but the delivery date is between July 30th and August 6th.
Backed up. Probably find it at a store. I'm sure that's not sold out at the Strand.
So.
You think some New York Lib bookstore, the people are going to buy
that? Yeah, I think they're all going to. Yeah, because remember, for them, they're going to read it so they can say, this is terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good for book sales, at the very least for him. Yes. Keaton's constantly moving bookshelves in the background are giving me motion sickness. Please resolve this issue before I have to invest in sick bags to watch Due Dissidents filmed in autofocus. Yeah, I might have to get a camera that's not autofocus because that is a risk.
It does that sometimes.
It does that sometimes. I might have to. I don't know if I can turn off autofocus on this thing or not. I'll have to look into that. Let's see. Republicans in 2008, a one-term senator from Illinois, too inexperienced to be president. Republicans in 2024, one-term senator from Ohio, perfect choice. Well, yeah, those norms have definitely shifted. I mean, Donald Trump basically broke those. You don't really see the experience argument being made. As far as a leader goes. Now, in terms of a candidate, I think it matters that he's only run one race because politically, stepping out into national spotlight, you never know how that's going to go. Some people look great until they do that, and then they collapse. So in 2028, there's a bit of a wild card there. Whereas if someone like Tulsi's been a national figure for a while, you're a little more... you feel a little more comfortable sending her out on a national stage. She already ran for president once. She didn't win because the party is stupid that she ran in. The Democrats would never vote for her. But she didn't implode. She didn't collapse. She handled herself well. The press didn't get to her. They didn't tank her with some story from somewhere. You never know how that's going to play. So in that sense, there is a little bit of a concern there, I think.
Well, and Kamala, when she's completely on script, can be effective.
Yeah.
So I was, oh, he's going to take her apart in the debate. No, she was good in the debates because she had all of her talking points.
Yeah.
She memorized everything. She prepared her delivery. As long as she's not thinking off the top of her head, she can be effective. It's when she goes extempore that she runs into trouble.
Right. Kerry Scott, use 3344 by Steve Wick for views. We're not there yet. 2418. Retro, thanks for the 199. USA Democracy is one psyop after another. Dupes. Yep, that feels that way. Andrew Napolitano for Attorney General. Yeah, there you go. That'd be something. Sparky, I can imagine Joe shouting in dismay to his cohorts, he's still alive, like Sollozzo in The Godfather. Thank you, Sparky. Skeptical of Vance because he went to Yale. Hope I'm wrong. Yeah. Understood. Trump and Vance are lesser of two evils. ? I mean, at this point, what's the debate? I mean, what is even the debate? I feel like the election's over. I feel like those arguments are just like almost obsolete at this point. And NYTMR, thanks for the $1. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on here. All right, so JD Vance is Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. That was announced yesterday as the Republican National Convention kicked off, but it was actually Teamsters President Sean O'Brien who arguably stole the show and gave the most passionate speech of the night. We're going to hear a few minutes from that speech right now.
I travel all across this country and meet with my members every week. You know what I see? An American worker being taken for granted. Workers being sold out to big banks, big tech, corporates, and the elite. And I'm not the only one who sees this. Everyday families see it. The American people aren't stupid. They know the system is broken. We all know how Washington is run. Working people have no chance of winning this fight. That's why I'm here today. Because I refuse to keep doing the same things my predecessors did. Today, the Teamsters are here to say we are not beholden to anyone or any party.
I mean, that's a hell of a statement right there. I mean, that's kind of a historic statement as it is, right? I mean, the very idea that he's even there and would say that is an example of the sort of shifting demographics of the two parties.
And I should join. You know, I'm allowed to join the Teamsters.
Oh yeah, why?
Because I'm a horse and carriage driver.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was invited actually. I was invited when I was a UPS worker. They invited me 3 weeks after I quit because they made it sound like they weren't going to invite me. That's how chaotic that place was. That was during the COVID Christmas. That was in 2020.
The Teamsters got into that business. It has to be the only time in history that the owner class in a business, rather than the workers, invited in the Teamsters because they needed a 400-pound gorilla to fight the animal rights activists. So the owners asked the Teamsters to come and organize the carriage business. It was not the workers.
Interesting.
An agenda and work with a bipartisan coalition ready to accomplish something real for the American worker. And I don't care about getting criticized. It's an honor to be the first Teamster in our 121-year history to address the Republican National Convention. Several months ago, I asked the RNC and the DNC for the opportunity to speak. To be frank, when President Trump invited me to speak at this convention, there was political unrest on the left and on the right. Hard to believe. Anti-union groups demanded the president rescind his invitation. The left called me a traitor. And this is precisely why it's so important for me to be here today. Think about this. Think about this. The Teamsters are doing something correct. If the extremes in both parties think I shouldn't be on this stage.
As I mentioned that in a previous segment, the Teamsters are doing something correct if the extremes in both parties think I shouldn't be on this stage. Now, he's calling the Republican old guard the extremes because they're trying to push them out to the fringes. Yeah, Mitt Romney would never invite the Teamsters here. The Teamsters would never show up to Mitt Romney's convention. Now, according to liberal media, Mitt Romney is the centrist Republican and Trump is the extremist. But he's inverting that. He's saying the extreme anti-labor Chamber of Commerce Republicans don't want me here, which is why it's good that I'm here. So he's flipping the script on that.
This is a really historic convention, and it's a really historic moment. This is where you are seeing the logical outcome of this decades-long shift in the party's bases really finally coming to fruition. You're really seeing the Republican Party is going to be taken over by MAGA, whatever that means to you, but definitely this populist element is going to define the Republicans, and it's going to put people who think of themselves as left in a very funny position if they continue to engage with this kind of electoral politics. Because if you have a class analysis, if you have a material analysis, well, and you're still involved in the two-party two-step, well, who do you vote for now? The Democrats? Like, how do you justify that if that's where you're coming from on economics?
Yes, I agree.
President Trump had the backbone to open the doors to this Republican convention, and that's unprecedented. No other nominee in the race would have invited the Teamsters into this arena. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want, but one thing is clear. President Trump is a candidate who is not afraid of hearing from new, loud, and often critical voices. And I think we all can agree, whether people like him or they don't like him, in light of what happened to him on Saturday, he has proven to be one tough SOB.
No denying that for sure. Absolutely, no doubt about that. And that speech really stole the show. I mean, in terms of speakers, obviously the headline of JD Vance being the vice presidential nominee was huge news. But in terms of the speaker lineup, that seems to be getting more play than anything else for good reason.
Reason.
That's a historic event.
It is. At that point, if they really lean into this, if they really go in this direction and you have more politicians with this bent come along, it's hard to see who the Democrats' remaining base is outside of just that traditional Republican base. Like that's all that's going to be left. They're not even going to have impoverished people of color to hide behind anymore, because they're all gonna go to the Republican. Like, really, who's gonna be left? You're gonna have a party that is in appearance as well as in fact, which it has been for a very long time, just this party of Wall Street and the military industrial complex, and that's it. And that's all just going to be rich white people.
Yeah. And people with no problems. People with no problems. And that's reflected in the coverage, not just the coverage of the Vance pick, but that was reflected in the debate. What did Joe Biden say at that debate? I mean, we don't remember what he said because he really couldn't say anything, but what was he trying to say at the debate? He's trying to say Trump is, unfit because he's a big asshole. Yeah, we know he's a big asshole, but what does that have to do with inflation? What does it have to do with the border? What does that have to do with Ukraine? Like, you can't run on that if you don't have a record to run on. And Biden does not have a record to run on, and the Democrats have nothing to say. And this is why, in the wake of the shooting, the appeal to unity, which, as I understand, is going to be now the new focus of Trump's convention speech, is likely to play very well. Because when you actually ask yourself, okay, what are we actually resigning ourselves to if we get 4 more years of Trump? Is it good? No, it's not good. Have these 4 years been good? These 4 years have been apocalyptically awful. Was George W. Bush good? Like what are you comparing it to in terms of the way it actually affects ordinary people's lives? A small handful of states are going to have abortion rights taken away. The ones who don't exercise the democratic control that is within their power to make sure that abortion rights are protected in those states. And for the small minority of women who want abortion rights in those states, because don't forget, the reason they're not going to have them is because they're deep red conservative states where most people don't want abortion legal. It's a very sad thing for those people. But as the Free Palestine activists have pointed out, they have somewhere to go. They can go to a blue state and get an abortion. They shouldn't have to. And we've seen horror stories, that couple in Idaho, horror stories, and no one should have to go through that. It's terrible, obviously.
And some people are literally so poor they can't go out of state.
Absolutely, it's terrible. I don't mean to dismiss it. It's terrible for a small number of people. Is it more terrible than what's happening now? Is it more terrible than what's happening now? To the point where it creates these apocalyptic stakes out of which a horrifically violent event happens. Like, people are going to ask themselves that, and I think they're going to answer it in a way that the Democrats are not going to be very happy with. Because at this point, the path of least resistance is to just accept that the Democrats are not viable and Trump is here for another 4 years. And don't get too pissed at me for saying that, because I'm not the only one saying that. You know who's also saying that? High-ranking Democrats are saying that, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. So don't kill the messenger, okay? But that is the tenor of this campaign right now.
Well, and what do they have left? Culture. This is something that we've pointed out on the show for a long time. Myself more than you, but I don't think we disagree. Where they're at on culture is deeply out of touch with where most of the country is. Now, you can get away with that if on economics you're putting money in people's pockets. That overrides culture. But when you're not, culture matters. If you're going to run on culture, people are going to take you at your word. That's what you're about. That's what you stand for. And what they stand for culturally, most people don't like. You got abortion. That's about it.
Yeah. And that's not even really culture, right? That is material in a way that a lot of, culture war topics aren't. There's a dollars and cents element. There's a class element to it. There's a geography element to it. There's a health element to it. And it's it's terrible, but most states are I said when Roe v. Wade was overturned, this is going to force the Republicans to moderate on the issue, because this is not a question of rhetoric anymore. And what has happened, the Republicans have moderated. Trump has said, we're going to leave it to the states. There's no talk of a federal ban or a federal limit. Kansas voted 60-40 to codify reproductive rights in their state constitution. Kansas, 60-40. That's a landslide. So there are things the states can do to protect themselves if they want to. Now, is it a tragedy for women in Mississippi who can't afford to bus out to get the care they need? Yes, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for a small number of people. And if we're talking about small numbers of people, look what's happening right now in Gaza, where Lancet is saying it's around 200,000 dead.
Right.
Okay. Now, look, we can litigate. I'm not here to litigate worthy victims, unworthy victims, who matters more. The point is, you cannot look at what's happening now as a rosy alternative to what's going to happen next year when Trump is president. You cannot make that case. You just cannot make that case on a macro level.
And you have to remember the Democrats and Hillary ran on this emphatically in her wisdom. America is already great.
Right.
They are the party of the status quo. And that was a big part of Trump's appeal the first time, even more so this time. With the Democrats, you know what to expect. More of this. More of this. With the Republicans, people are willing to take the chance. All right, let Trump flip the board.
Right.
At least you have a chance that there's going to be an improvement. Maybe these guys go in, they create new manufacturing policies, they impose tariffs. It actually helps American manufacturing. Nobody really knows. I mean, I was watching something saying, I can't remember exactly what it was, that Biden actually continued Trump's tariffs on China. Now, we're not economists, and in my experience, 10 economists talk about something like this, they have 10 different opinions. But I got to say, when I look at the kinds of people who are always saying you don't want to challenge globalization in that way, they're not people I really would trust with the interests of working class people. They're usually very Clintonian, very Reaganite people who tell you that protectionism doesn't work. I mean, China seems to think it works. They have very high tariffs.
Yes. Well, look, protectionism, it's a question of, do you want the United States government to function as the arbiter of a global economic system, or do you want them to function as the advocate of its own people who are existing in a global economic system, but who need representation? That's the question.
Right.
It's me. I'm here. Says, I think you're doing very well and making a really difficult point, Keaton. Well, thank you for the support. And let's go straight into this segment, because this is an issue where it's not just me saying it, folks.
For once, Keaton can get the hate comments.
Yeah, I'll take them. And one of the reasons I'll take them is because I'm so confident that I'm right. And the reason I'm so confident that I'm right is because I'm echoing what the Democrats are saying. Don't get mad at me. The Democrats are saying this. So let's go into this segment here. Russell prepared this. So
what was the last thing they got mad at you about? What was that?
I don't know. My pro-extinction, my cavalier attitude towards human extinction.
Was that
that always ruffles some feathers? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm neither for nor against extinction, as a former friend of the show might put it.
Yes.
So. One thing that the events of this past weekend have done.
Hang on, before you get into it. Housekeeping. We dropped it. We were.
Oh, we were over there, and then we came back. All right. Well, we can implement the forward progress rule in football, where once you get there, even if they knock you back, it still counts. 525. There you go. Forward progress rule, everybody. So one conversation that has been backgrounded, which it's inconceivable to think that this could have been backgrounded, because this was the most seismic political story of our lifetimes, arguably, at least in terms of a campaign season story, until this weekend. But talk of Joe Biden being swapped out is almost nowhere to be found. And that's largely because the Democrats have had a great giving up, it seems, which is the subject of this next piece. So, Russell, take this away.
What else can they do?
Yeah.
All right. So Trump rally shooting upends Democrats' Biden crisis. Axios, they do all this formatting, so it's better to just screenshot them.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Biden was engaged in a high-stakes outreach campaign to Capitol Hill in the hours leading up to the shooting at Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, which left a bystander and the shooter dead. As part of an effort to stop the flow of statements urging him to end his re-election bid, Biden met Saturday afternoon with the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the center-left New Democrat coalition. The latter call was described by lawmakers present as tense and a disaster for the president, who they said was combative in the face of questions about how he plans to turn around his flagging campaign. That call came after Biden was told by Rep. Mike Levin during a call with Hispanic caucus members, doesn't sound like a Hispanic name to me, How did he get in there?
Yeah.
That he should drop out of the race.
Talk about Jewing your way into a room.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Levin. I'm here for the Hispanic Caucus meeting. Yeah.
La cucaracha, la cucaracha. I'm sorry. Am I still allowed to sing that?
Yeah, right.
Biden also met with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in Delaware on Saturday, with Schumer calling it a good meeting. In a Face the Nation interview on Sunday morning, Representative Jason Crow largely pulled his punches despite Biden shouting at him on the New Democrats call after he asked about eroding public confidence in the president's leadership. Okay, this article doesn't get into it, but apparently Biden started yelling at him, "You show me one world leader who thinks that. Yeah. Show me one who I'll talk to them." And some people say he kind of did the debate just completely clear that he's demented thing in that call. Quote, "Listen, you know this is a tough business. There's a lot at stake. Emotions can run high," Crow said of the call on CBS. He added, "I think the president heard our message very clearly, and in fact, he promised to come back to use with more information to address our concerns and to answer our questions." To us. There you go. Representative Dean Phillips, friend of show Dean Phillips, who ran a primary campaign against Biden based around concerns over the 81-year-old president's electability, suggested he is sticking to his strategic post-debate silence about Biden's candidacy. Quote, "An American is dead, a former president and others are wounded, and a shell-shocked country is left wondering how to restore reason and respect," Phillips told Axios in a statement.
Yeah, that is two-faced politician speak for it's just not worth doing anything right now.
It's just not worth it. He's going to win anyway.
Right.
Why bother? A second senior House Democrat told Axios that the Trump shooting has taken some of the heat off because it would, quote, "be bad form to make any statements against President Biden." Another Biden skeptical Democrat, asked about lingering questions around the president's candidacy, told Axios, "I don't think that's the focus right now." Biden is adopting a similar posture, with his campaign pulling ads in the immediate aftermath of the shooting and the president condemning the shooting and calling Trump personally. Biden's visit to Austin, Texas, which was scheduled for Monday, will be postponed, the White House said. Most lawmakers who spoke to Axios said it's too early to say whether the cessation intentions will last until the Democratic National Convention next month. But the second senior House Democrat offered one reason for why it might. Quote, "We've all resigned ourselves to a second Trump presidency."
Yes, let's repeat that. We've all resigned ourselves to a second Trump presidency. That's where I got that from in the last bit. I didn't make that
They're
up.
the last to know. They're the last to know. Biden gal pal and personal nurse, AOC, took real exception to this and tweeted out in his defense, "If you're a senior Democrat that feels this way, you should absolutely retire and make space for true leadership that refuses to resign themselves to fascism. This kind of leadership is functionally useless to the American people. Retired." No, Alexandria, what's functionally useless to the American people is a pseudo-progressive that has passed absolutely no legislation, that was supported by people who hoped that she was going to go in there and represent the interests of working people, who has now become one of the greatest suck-ups in Washington, trying to herd people into a doomed presidential campaign and insisting that the obviously naked and demented emperor has a 265 IQ and is fully dressed. That's the kind of leadership we don't need.
Good point, Charles. Well said, Charles.
I keep forgetting to clip that.
Yeah. No, but there it is. The second a senior House Democrat offered a reason, do you think that quote would leave the lips of a senior Democrat's mouth to anyone, much less the media, if that were not the reality?
Right.
That's the reality. Now, Dean Phillips didn't put it that way. Dean Phillips, what did Dean Phillips say? Well, I think we need to restore reason and respect. Who else comes out here? That's not the focus right now. Well, if not now, when? The election's in 3.5 months. Your convention is in 1 month. Starts 1 month from tomorrow, right? If not now, when? There's no urgency because there is resignation, obviously. So what that last person said, whoever it was, they're unnamed in the article, we've all resigned ourselves to a second Trump presidency. That's the reality. That's what you got right now.
Yeah, this one's lost. This one's lost. It's clearly Trump's going to have some kind of a blowout. The Democratic Party, if it's even possible at this point, I think is going to have to think about what they want to be going forward, because this is the end result of a long process where they gave up their working class base to the other side, and now they don't have a base. So what do they become? If the Republicans steal economics from the Democrats, what do you have left? Kids at drag shows? Like, what are you advocating at that point? Porn in schools? Like
World War III?
What World War III?
Yeah, that's it. This would have happened in 2020 were it not for the pandemic. It would have happened in 2022 were it not for Dobbs. And it's happening now. It's happening now. It's the end of the line. It's the end of the line. They've got nothing left. Literally nothing left. They have a candidate they don't even like. If you had Newsom in the race, right, he'd probably be done for after this weekend. But you don't. You have a guy who going into this weekend, you had a guy who you didn't even want. You wanted to get him out of the race. Now, forget it. Forget it.
Pete, and don't get ahead of yourself. This is going to be decided at the battle box.
Yeah, the battle box. That's right. See you at the battle box. Billionaire who funded Vance is Peter Thiel of PayPal and holds huge stakes in Palantir, an Israeli AI company used to profile Palestinians. Yeah, no, he's not. Yeah, not a good guy. Not. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no.
Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying.
He didn't even give us any Thiel bucks.
Yeah, no Thiel bucks. Exactly.
No Thiel bucks. We tried.
Maybe he's given us a couple Rumble rants. I don't know.
Maybe.
Don Jr. isn't that bad, guys. Neither is Trump. Pump the brakes on that. You sound a bit like Joy Reid. All right. Well, that's not a very nuanced statement, I have to say.
Look, man, I did blow in a bathroom with Don Jr. and it wasn't even good shit.
Exactly.
I was like, with his money, it just shows even the dealers don't want to deal with him.
Exactly. MAGA communism is recognizing that MAGA represents a section of working people waking up to the system, and that MAGA has permanently changed politics. There you go. Thank you, SB. Peter, version 1, something much more sinister is happening. DM my theory? Sure. Yeah, why not? Send it over. Let's hear it. I think our DMs are open. Please discuss Vance's connections with Peter Thiel and Thiel being owner of Palantir. Yeah, we did not get to that today. I'm sure we will. He's going to be in the news for quite some time.
That's going to come up quite a lot.
He's going to come up quite a lot. We'll have quite some time for a deep dive. I just want to, today, I think what's most important about right now is the calculation of choosing him over the other candidates, right? I mean, that's what jumped out to me as being most newsworthy today.
Sure, yeah.
And we'll get to all the other stuff.
We have months. In terms of replacing Biden, didn't they decide to electronically nominate him like next week or some shit in their brilliant strategery? Like, it's not even like they have until the convention, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the date is on that. Didn't you say you thought it was the 21st of July? I don't know if we know that for a fact.
I think I read that somewhere, that it was like the 21st and 22nd. They were doing this virtual nominations, so like that's next week.
Yeah, that's coming up real quick. Can't fix Ivy League, says Shina Billy. Thank you. Brianna Joy Gray was a lawyer. LOL. Thank you. Yep. Sounds like Dems have conceded the presidency.
That doesn't say. Yeah, doesn't mean anything in and of itself.
Greenwald was too. That's true. Ryan, thanks for the €10. Sounds like Dems have conceded the presidency and are focused on saving down ballot. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know to what extent that's even possible. Although their Senate candidates are still looking fairly strong. Like there was a I don't think it was where was it? No, it was the Senate race. Yeah, in Virginia, a poll came out that had Biden down 3 to Trump in Virginia, 39-36, which is devastating. Virginia's been basically a blue state since 2008.
Right.
So horrible on the Biden front. Sorry, I just want to
go ahead.
Put a button on this. Tim Kaine still beating his Republican rival by 11 points.
There's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the Roe-inspired surprising results, it would not surprise me if the Democrats outperform on the Senate and Congress just because of Roe.
Yeah. Especially the Senate. The Democratic Senate candidates are holding their own. Even in Arizona, you have Gallego running about even with Kerry Lake, up in the slightly in the average, and Biden's getting pummeled in Arizona. And so that split decision is not unlikely, given the fact, and this is what I was saying earlier, the states are empowered to protect themselves against the Handmaid's Tale psycho crazy shit that could come down the pike if the Republicans get everything. The states have it within themselves to prevent that, and it looks like they are for the most part.
Right.
Yeah. And the Senate is part of that. The Senate's a huge part of that. Those state races are the ones that proved that's what stood in the way of the red wave last time. Democrat governors did well, Democrat senators did well, even though Republicans took the House.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if he makes it to Election Day, Trump's going to be reelected. But yeah, I think people are going to be afraid of unifying the three branches without Roe to protect abortion rights.
Yeah, I think so too. Movie Magus 2, thank you for the $2. The power of one, the power of two, the power of.
Okay. So I'm gonna get back to work on my Star Wars essay. It's a 23-minute epic. I made a joke with that is pretty funny.
Okay, there you go. Stoop sign. Vance's book Hillbilly Elegy rose to prominence, helped by the MSM right after Trump won in 2016, as the other half of America tried to reckon with how Trump could win. Isn't that when the movie came out too? Wasn't it about that time as well?
No, it was later.
The movie was later. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It has been very funny to me. I think it was during the pandemic the movie dropped on Netflix. It has been very funny to me watching Blue MAGA get mad at the media. They're canceling their time subscriptions because I see them all complaining now that NPR featured that book multiple times. They're very mad at NPR.
Well, he was basically one of them. Didn't Vance vote for Hillary in 2016? I mean, at the time, what were they going to do? He was a member in good standing, I think.
Did he? Did he vote for Hillary?
I thought he said he was going to. Yeah, he was kind of a lib. I mean, he's writing for The Atlantic. He's writing for The New York Times. Yeah, I mean, what were they going to do? How were they to know? Folks, if you would like to support the program, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and help us out. Your support is what keeps this show on the tracks. Patreon.com/DoDissidents. Perks of membership include your name on this very scroll here. You also get call-in access to our post-show Q&As every Sunday. We had a lot of callers last Sunday. That was a lot of fun. You also get 2 bonus streams per month exclusively for members. 2 bonus live streams per month. Those are both we do content on those streams and we take calls. So those are full-length interactive live streams. Patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can go to DoDissidents.substack.com and join up there. Or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, about 1,700 of you are. Please smash that follow button and hit that bright red join button to go to our locals page where you can sign up and become a member with special perks, plus the good karma of supporting independent media for just $5 a month. China Shill. Sorry, go ahead.
I will just point out with the increasing likelihood of Trump being elected, and since he survived the assassination attempt, the market's been off the hook. Stocks are off the hook.
Yeah, I believe that. I definitely believe that. China Shill, thoughts on Johnston versus Ritter? Johnston won. Are you talking about on Twitter? Did they have a beef? I didn't read that. I have no idea what you're referring to. I'm assuming it's a Twitter battle, but I'm not sure. But I'll look into that.
No,
I'll look into that.
I think it's a rap battle.
Yeah, I ain't above some good drama every now and then. Give me some reading material tonight. Better than a book. Better than a boring book. Why would I read a boring long book when I could read Kate Johnston versus Scott Ritter go head to head on Twitter?
We
That
have
sounds
so
more
many
fun.
books to get through because of these upcoming interviews.
That's true. That's true. I should probably read the book for next week.
Why don't you get it on Audible since you don't read fast?
That's an idea. Yeah. You know what people should do now?
For our third guest, I'm doing it on Audible.
What people should do now is, since like YouTube is so big now, these authors should just make videos of themselves reading the books and just charge for the videos, I guess that's kind of what an audiobook is. But there's something about video that keeps people's attention more than audio does, I feel like. Or just have an AI guy read it. But thanks for the heads up, China Shill. I'll try and check that out. If Trump, thanks wasn't me, appreciate the $20. That's very kind of you. If Trump went with Rubio means he was courting neocons and wanting to stay undead. His Vance play means he's worried about breaking the blue wall, wants to keep Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan in play. Yeah, though, those definitely, that Vance definitely was the smartest pick, all things considered. I mean, Rubio just would have been, that would have been very depressing.
That would have been a very bad pick for him.
Very, very bad pick for him. Russell, Scream for Me, Sarajevo. If you haven't, I do recommend you watch it. Keaton is too young for it. It's a compliment. Trust me, Keaton. All right. I'll trust you on that.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
Scream for me, Sarajevo. Is that what that's from?
Yeah, sounds like it fits. Sloppy Top 10, thanks for the $5. Italian gangsters in movies have been replaced by Russian gangsters for over a decade now. There was recently an NCIS episode where the plot was about Russians who were shutting down. Ran out of characters there. But thank you.
Well, not just in media, but in real life.
In real life, too. That's true. That is true. Life of Bobert. Okay, I must have missed that you're not changing the aged parchment, which is basically the whole thing. So what ifs? LOL, Russ. I'm not defeatist. I get it though. Just forceful and emotive. I'm guessing that's
hey man.
Ran out of characters there.
Send us a redo. Send us a redo. We are going to
she's
revamp
concerned,
it.
or he's concerned that the parchment is going away. I mean, I like the parchment because that's our thing now. So we should try to incorporate that somehow.
Look, we'll see what people send. We are holding off because we're going to get like neon signs behind us, but we don't know how to design them until we redesign the logo.
I mean, what's it going to be? It's going to be this? Should this be the layout of the show? We can't do a show with this in the background.
Really confuse the fuck out of people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This is our Halloween one. That's cool. Then,
yes.
This is boring. Nobody wants this. So this is good. All right.
Maybe a star field. Nice star field.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that. Trump's raised fist after being an inch away from getting clipped was cultural appropriation of the civil rights era, deeply hurtful to the black community. Thank you, Stoopstein. Break it off in BlackRock. Make Ukraine Russia again. Thank you, Sparky. Sparky's over there on Rumble today. Are you splitting time? I think you sent us some super chats, too. Hope JD Vance expands his anti-useless war attitude to China and then the Middle East. Guess we'll see. Globalists seem sort of upset about him. So there's that. Yeah, they didn't like him. Well, I mean, when they heard that Tim Scott and Rubio were in the running, I'm sure they got very excited about Rubio. They'd be singing a much different tune if he picked Rubio.
Hey, look, I'll see when I go there, but I'm watching a lot of videos of Inside China. The idea that we need to go to war with these people is just absolutely insane. Leave them alone, man. They're living, as far as I can see, they're living their lives. I don't really, I've said this for a long time. I'm doing a lot of research. Maybe I'll change my mind. It looks to me like it's state capitalism. I mean, it doesn't look like communism to me. It's a bunch of shops and neon and
it looks way more advanced than
right. Skyscrapers, a lot of commercial activity.
Trains.
Yeah.
Trains that show up on time. That's cool.
Yes. People look pretty happy. I'm seeing things in the cities, because obviously that's where the YouTubers who would be shooting this would be going. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like a pretty happy, stable society with a lot of commercial activity. Again, I'll see when I go. They have Starbucks. They have all that. I saw a bunch of chain stores in the background in these videos.
Get a venti mocha latte, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, even the whole debate. It's a communist country. I don't even know what that means in a situation like that. I mean, I've talked to Tusker about this, and ownership of the banks and not allowing the capitalists to run the government. Which, okay. I mean, apparently there is some form of democracy where, they have elections at a local level, and that's where the wider body is chosen from. I have a lot to learn. But overall, yeah, man, leave these people alone. They're not, why? Why? Why would you have this antagonism towards this country? I mean, even what we did with Venezuela, with imposing these sanctions on them. What if they want to go full communist? What do you care? What do you care? Why can't you trade with them? How does that affect us?
Sorry, lost track of things here. Queer feminists overextended themselves in bourgeois identity politics instead of building solidarity with the working class, communists, and religious groups. Gay marriage was accepted. Thank you, Scorpionic Sash. Shooter was CIA, MK Ultra, and FBI stooge, or both. Interagency cooperation isn't always a good thing. Thank you, Sparky. Did we miss something from Snork? I don't know if I missed something from Snork. Speaking of new norms, has there been a new episode of that terrible Twitter show? Might be fun to look at it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they did an episode 2. The reviews were not good on the first one. In fairness to Constantine.
Which one?
The new norms, the anti-woke Twitter comedy sitcom.
Oh, yeah, they never did another one, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. That may have been one and done. Canceled at intermission, as they say. In fairness to Constantine, he's considered to be a great satirist. Thank you, Ken.
By who?
Yeah, by who?
Look, his Oxford Union debate about climate science, I thought was very good, and I still cite what he said there, and I still think he was right. But his behavior there was reprehensible.
Yeah, and his attitude toward that whole issue, obviously. If aliens exist and they're watching all this, Brent Yoendo, they suck. I don't want to know aliens if they let us spiral like this. Not even a hot blue alien. Not worth knowing. Go be unidentified somewhere else. There you go. Tell them to take a fucking walk. Realigning party coalitions is what U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer was talking about. Yes, particularly for Dems in 2016, for every blue-collar worker we lose. Yes, exactly. They were very overt. They were very excited about it. They weren't hiding it. They were thrilled to lose the blue-collar workers and replace them with white-collar workers.
Yep.
Back from the road. Thanks for the 1999.
Karma's a bitch.
Yes, indeed. Good show. Great to see you guys growing. Thank you, Back from the Road. Keep it up, and congrats on the upcoming Dissident, Keaton. Thank you, Back from the Road. Appreciate that very much. Brandon says the Democratic Party has become the textbook conservative party. Thanks, Obama and Clinton. Thank you. Baby Ethernet. Dems supposedly care about democracy and the working class, yet they're retiring their fight over optics alone. Deeply unserious and disingenuous. Yes, thank you, Baby Ethernet. Agreed. Okay, we got a couple more segments to do. This is a quick one. Tucker Carlson is in town for the RNC. He's going to be speaking on Thursday, which is the same night that Trump himself is speaking. And Tucker went out on a limb and predicted the events of this past weekend about a year ago. And here he is now giving his take on the fallout.
Of this election, I mean, let's be honest, Trump just won. He won. Not only did he survive an assassination attempt, he stood up without knowing whether there were other shooters there. He stood up and faced the crowd and raised his hand and said, fight, fight, fight. That's it. You do that, you win. And by the way, I happen to notice that the crowd, which also didn't know whether there were other shooters, who watched Trump get shot in the face, they did not bolt. It wasn't like a fire in a theater, actually. They sat there, they watched him intently, and when he stood up, they applauded him, and many cried. Why is that? Because a brave leader gives his people heart. That's why. That's exactly why.
You know, it's true. And, you know, I've always been so generally averse to Trump's politics on most issues. Not on all of them, obviously, but on most of them. And I've always seen him as so sort of intellectually lazy and so sort of uncommitted to even his most, serious promises of the 2016 campaign, even the ones I didn't particularly give a shit about, like the wall, right? The fact that he kind of really half-assed it on the wall, I never thought of him as a particularly serious political person. I always thought of him as just the embodiment of a certain ego and a certain id. And there was a certain blankness about him that was very useful in terms of people projecting onto him what they wanted to see. And I still believe that to a certain extent. But this last bit here.
And many cried. Why is that? Because a brave leader gives his people heart. That's why. That's exactly why.
Like that is, for whatever he is, that is true. I mean, when you look at what has been thrown at this fucking guy, who was shitting in his gold toilet, banging supermodels until he decided to do this. And you look at just what he has endured. It is remarkable, the stamina on this guy. And he is a warrior in that sense. And so whatever he represents to people, and there are people, I mean, he has a cult-like following. I've seen it in person. You've seen it in person. We've both covered Trump rallies. We've both been aware in this space of the political dynamic. If that's your thing, man, imagine Bernie Sanders going through all this shit for his movement. Imagine any other politician. Imagine any of these fucking mediocre politicians running this kind of gauntlet for their movement. Whether you like the movement or don't like the movement, imagine another person doing this. Getting fucking prosecuted, getting fucking shot in the ear, the scrutiny that you've endured. It's just like the union guy said. One tough SOB. That alone, I think, inspires people. That is that rallies people. The fact that this guy and the January 6th, look at how many times they tried to just shut him down and shut him out. 20 years ago, a thing like January 6th happens and you're on the hook for it, not just politically, but there are moves made to make you legally on the hook for it. That's it. You don't rebound from that. That would scare 99 out of 100 politicians away from public life. They'd be like, all right, they sent me their signal, time to retire and, go be a lobbyist somewhere.
That's it. Yeah.
Who gets right back in the ring?
Look at Andrew Cuomo.
Look at Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, exactly.
Once they got him out, all the bribery, all the money he took from the hospital lobbies, all the old people who died from COVID because of the money he took and that impacted his policies. That all went away. They were investigating it. They were looking into it.
Yeah, that's a great point. If that goes away, he's a retired man. He goes on Bill Maher every once in a while, and that's it. Who would, after a thing like that, throw their hat right back in the ring, face down indictment after indictment, charge after charge, an assassination attempt? I mean, there's a tenacity about him that does have a certain appeal, I must admit.
Sure.
Makes me jealous. If only someone did this to get us health care. If only someone fought like this for health care. So that we didn't have to fight with insurance companies to get medicine.
Well, a lot of people have said this for a long time, and it's true. They pay Democrats to be weak.
Right.
They pay Democrats to fail. Those are the Democrats they support. They support weak Democrats. And this is, I go back and forth sometimes with our communist friends, but it's with love because, hey, one thing they say that I cannot argue with, they're the only ones who ever beat their capitalist class. That is true. Now, I have some disagreements about what the upshot of that is the day after. As my friend James said, taking all those people out into the yard and you can fill in the rest. That's the highlight. After it's a question of what happens after that. But when you look at some of the leaders that the left produced in the past, being weak, being feckless, being frankly effeminate, it is not inherent to leftism. It is inherent to the kind of leftism that I believe at this point has been carefully constructed since the 70s to be exactly what it is today. Weak, compromised, identity obsessed, and no threat to power. Now, the mistake I would argue they may have made strategically is pumping up strong Republicans. They never really thought about what might happen if the movement turned against their interests. So supporting all of the workers and putting them into the pro-corporate party. Okay, well, now you got a bunch of sons of bitches tough enough not to flee when shots are being fired at the president right in front of them. Now you got them turning against you. You might not like how that turns out.
But that's the thing. I mean, and that's a good point, but like that wasn't really cultivated by the Republican Party either. Like this is unique to Trump. I mean, that's what Tucker's saying. Like this is a level of fucking fighting spirit that
he
like,
had
you
those
do not
he
see.
had those people to work off of, because I mean that's what Frank's whole book was about how all of these were, what's the matter with Kansas? These working class people had been going to the Republican Party for decades.
Sure.
And then Trump went up and actually said, oh yeah, these trade deals, they're terrible.
Well, that's what I mean.
We should tear them up. But they were already there in the Republican Party for him to build off of.
He cultivated that. Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan didn't cultivate that. They didn't really care if they had him or not.
Well, they were just bringing those people in on culture.
Right.
And
exactly.
Trump was the first one who came in and actually started talking about their economic interests. Right. But hey, man, when I see something like that, I said this when I went and covered Trump's Bronx rally. Elections are won and lost on morale. Those people are fucking into it. Who's into Joe Biden? Yeah. Who's into Joe Biden? Yeah. These people who are, into Joe Biden, they're not into Joe Biden. They're neurotic people with no personality who use politics as a means of signaling some kind of depth that they don't actually have. They just very superficially repeat the party line as a way of getting people to pay attention to them. That is my experience of the kinds of people who are passionate Democrats at this point. They're very shallow, uninteresting people who, if they were not repeating the craziest shit Rachel Maddow said last night, they wouldn't have anything at all to say.
Yeah. Well said. Kim and G, love the look on Sabby's face when she read Sparky's Kamala Ragdoll super chat. Did you send that to Sabby, Sparky? Jesus Christ.
You're going to have to tell me what that was, I guess, when we're off the air.
I don't remember a word for word. The one about her being passed around like a rag doll. The very crude and vulgar super chat.
Oh, boy.
Apparently that's been read throughout the space now. You sent that to Sabby. Very ungentlemanly of you, Sparky. My Hillary-supporting globalist brother read a Hillbilly Elegy when it first came out, leading me to believe it was helped along by globalists to give Vance a book and backstory, a la, I'm assuming, Obama. Thank you, Sparky. That could be. Russell was a true Teamster in the old school sense of the word. Thank you, Sparky.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah, I worked at a UPS warehouse, and they said they were going to invite me into the union. They were happy with my work. I was pretty good. I was a preloader. And then they gave me some bullshit about how, well, the book's closed 29 days into your first 30 days, so you have to wait until after the holidays when they'll open back up again. And I said, well, are you going to let me in after the books open back up again? They say, well, it's 50-50. Depends on how hard you work. Depends on what the demand is. I'm like, all right, fuck this. I'm taking that as a no. I'm not going to fucking bust I could make twice the amount of money driving people's pizzas around in my heated car, listening to podcasts and music. I'm going to stay here doing manual labor in 5-degree weather in the dead of night, only to be told, thanks, we don't need you anymore. So I left. But it was so chaotic because that was the COVID Christmas where they were just so overstaffed.
Right.
3 weeks after I quit, I get a packet from the Teamsters inviting me to join the union. I hadn't showed up for work in almost a month, and yet I got the invitation. I couldn't take it because I couldn't show back up at the warehouse because I was gone already.
Right.
On my bucket list, Russ finishes reading out loud the final volume of Proust's In Search of Lost Time. Keaton says, indeed. Thank you, Kevin.
That'll be for the live show.
Yes. Had a friend and colleague from Kentucky outskirts of Cincinnati, thanks Sparky, named Vance. He was smart and had a great sense of humor. It's been a few years. I should look him up and ask if he's related. Could be. Could be. Notice all of a sudden Biden is calling Trump by his first name, Donald. Sounds like Joe has a guilty conscience. Yeah, he referred to him by name. Not even Karine Jean-Pierre refers to him by name. They always refer to him as the previous occupant or the other guy when they're rattling off past presidents. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very sort of, what's the word? Small about that. Very petty, very petulant. Petulant, that's what I was looking for. Okay. There's a can't beat him, join him dynamic that Trump should be cautious of, as many evil people who haven't already infiltrated his orbit will do so and advise Trump to be pro-war. Yes, obviously.
I think you already rode that carousel.
Yeah. In 2016, Trump moved GOP to anti-war. Thanks, Pastor Marty. In 2024, he and Vance are moving GOP to pro-labor. We will see. We will see. I mean, it's a gesture in that direction, obviously. We will see what the follow-through is. Tara Reid in U.S. now to fight Biden. Yes, thank you, Kinky. Yes, she arrived back in the United States. She was having some problem getting back in. Now she's back. I saw that.
Oh, she's back?
Yeah, we should try to have her on soon. We had her on way back.
Yeah, way back.
I think you're overestimating the amount the right will shift on economics. Just look at any right-wing media on unions, minimum wage, and healthcare. Yeah, no, like I said, they don't have a record to run on.
Yeah, and Vance has a mixed record based on Fong's article.
Exactly. There's no reason to celebrate, but it is when you are the kingmaker, as Donald Trump is the kingmaker, and to a certain extent the president is the kingmaker because he chooses the VP. That's doubly true in this case since Trump only has one term. So Trump is basically picking the next nominee of the party now, especially since he's only got one term. So to give JD Vance that kind of position within the party, when he represents a very small percentage of elected Republicans, it's a big move. That is a big-time maverick move.
Look, we've said this for as long as we've had the show. If the Republicans are really able to put together left labor-oriented economics with social conservatism, guess what? That's the American sweet spot. That is where most people are. The Democrats, the media that shills for them, spent a lot of time telling people that the same guy who's against gun laws also doesn't want universal health care, and it's actually not true. If you give that guy economic populism and you tell him he can keep his guns, you'll never beat the Republicans. Never. They'll be in power for a generation.
Yeah. The center is defined by the media as fiscally conservative, socially liberal, when really the center is the opposite. The center is the opposite. Kenman, really hoping all the talk about Trump doesn't cause people to forget the genocide. College students all cleared now. Absolutely, and I saved that for now because our last segment of the day is about just that. So, Russell, why don't we take it away? Last segment of the day, and then we will take the remaining super chats and Rumble rants.
So you might have heard about this, and you know what? You make a good point. It's unfortunate. You have so much going on here. It is certainly pushing this off the front page. There's only so much bandwidth people have. What are you going to do? Like not cover the VP pick, not cover the Trump assassination? But unfortunately, yes, these people are still suffering. Israeli strikes killed at least 90 people and injured hundreds more in the Mawasi area west of Khan Yunis on Saturday, according to Palestinian health officials. In an operation, the Israel Defense Forces said targeted two top Hamas officials, including Mohammed Daif, the head of Al-Qassam Brigades, Hamas's military wing. Palestinian health officials called the attack a massacre, and the scale of the attack threatened to further stall progress on already strained ceasefire talks currently underway in Cairo and Doha. And Khalil al-Hayya, the deputy chairman of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, dismissed reports that the strike targeted Daif as a ridiculous justification for targeting civilians in a statement aired on Al Jazeera. Footage captured by Reuters showed hundreds of men, women, and children running away from a large plume of smoke on the horizon. Many carried their bloody and unconscious injured slung over their arms on makeshift stretchers. Smoke from a flaming and blown-out vehicle fogged the air as a woman wept amid the chaos. Quote, "They're all gone. My whole family's gone. Where are my brothers? They're all gone. They're all gone. There's no one left." In a press conference Saturday, IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari said the attack was a targeted strike on a Hamas compound surrounded by trees, buildings, and sheds, and not a tent complex. He added that senior military commanders Daif and Rafa Salama, as well as other Hamas militants, were present in the area, but did not share details of that intelligence, and said the IDF was still verifying the result of the strike. In a separate statement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the IDF were not certain whether Daif and another Hamas commander had been killed.
Notice they never have any actual information to give you after one of these things. It's always, yeah, there were Hamas commanders here, and we think we got them, but we'll get back to you.
We'll get back to you. We'll let you know. And even if they were there, it's no justification for what they did. This was supposed to be a safe zone.
Yes. 90 people dead.
Yep, at least.
At least.
Daif, who is believed to be one of the masterminds behind the October 7th attacks, rarely speaks and has never appeared in public. He has survived several assassination attempts by Israel. In response to Netanyahu, Al-Haya said Daif hears you now, suggesting that Daif remains alive. The IDF had declared Mawasi a safe humanitarian zone in December, though the area has been repeatedly attacked since. During the press conference, Hagari said the IDF had called for civilians to move to the area, but that Hamas's high-ranking leaders had embedded themselves among the population, prompting the strike. Now, I just want you to think about this for a minute. Imagine an American town where they were after two bank robbers, and they decided to bomb the town, killing all civilians around them. Would we find that acceptable?
Right.
This is the atrocity that Israel is committing on an almost daily basis that people are meant to accept as a reasonable formulation. Well, they were there, so we had to kill all these men, women, and children. Of course we did.
Exactly.
We couldn't send in. They're supposed to be such a great army. You don't have special forces to send in a situation like that.
When we attacked the bin Laden compound, there were children, a lot of children, big families, a lot of children in that compound. On every floor, they ran into, quote, the several knots of children. That's what they called them. You know how many children died in that raid? Zero.
Zero. Yep. On X, the European Union, this is not about Hamas. This is about genocide and ethnic cleansing. This has always been the Zionist project from the day they showed up in that region.
Yep. Well, if you notice that paragraph there, we called for civilians to move to the area, but that Hamas's high-ranking leaders had embedded themselves among the population, prompting the strike. So when they order the evacuation of an area, right, they say we got to clear the civilians out of the area so that we could strike the area. Isn't the implication there that Hamas is in the area? So what, Hamas is not going to take the cue to flee with the civilians?
Right. They're going to wait for the bombing.
Exactly. So in those instances, it ain't about killing Hamas. It's about clearing out the area and killing whoever happens to be in the way when you go and do that. So now they're saying, well, they were there, so we had to strike even though there were civilians present. Well, that just tells you all this bullshit about, we leaflet the area to get the civilians out. That's neither here nor there.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right. On X, the European Union's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, condemned the attack that he said, quote, seems to have provoked a carnage in Mawasi refugee camp, designated safe zone by Israel. Wars have limits enshrined in international law, End can't justify all means. We condemn any violation, he added. Direct attacks on civilians in designated safety zones are potential violations of international humanitarian law. Nearby hospitals were overwhelmed with casualties. Mohammed Sakr, a spokesperson for Nasser Hospital, told NBC News that the hospital did not have the capacity or medical supplies to deal with the wounded and injured, and that he expected, quote, a number of wounded to die due to the lack of treatment. Within a few hours, Dr. Mohammed Sakr, director of the nursing department at Nasser Hospital, told Quds News Network that the hospital was unable to continue offering medical and nursing services due to the high number of deaths, injuries, and amputees. Now, that was not enough for the murderous, sick, Nazi genocidal regime of Israel. They hit them again yesterday. Same people. Israel launches new Gaza strikes after weekend attack kills scores in safe zone. So just a couple of excerpts from this. In Deir al-Bala in the central Gaza Strip, where Israel hasn't yet invaded and hundreds of thousands have taken refuge, the municipality issued an urgent statement saying it was no longer able to provide 700,000 people in the area with drinking water after running out of fuel. Quote, we urge citizens to preserve what is left in their private tankers, and we stress the need to maintain the spirit of cooperation and sharing. Speaking amidst the rubble of his family home in Deir al-Bala, Walid Tabet told how an Israeli strike earlier on Monday had killed members of his family. Rescue workers and neighbors sifted through the debris to search for survivors buried beneath the wrecked building. Quote, my mother, an elderly woman, was sitting with me upstairs. She went downstairs, and after 5 minutes, I pulled her out from under the rubble. We also pulled my sister out from under the rubble, and my sister's children, too. Those who died are my mother, my sister, and my sister's children. Children. One was 2.5 years old, and the other two, I don't know what happened to them. God willing, may God save them, he added. Saturday's carnage in Mawasi, one of the deadliest Israeli strikes of the war, has overshadowed negotiations that both sides had previously described as the closest yet to a lasting ceasefire. A senior Hamas official said on Sunday the group had not walked out of the talks despite the Mawasi strike. Israel says another senior commander was killed in the strike, but it has not yet confirmed the fate of Daif. Hamas officials have denied Daif was killed. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken met with Israeli National Security Advisor Tashi Hanegbi and Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer in Washington on Monday to discuss, quote, practical solutions that we have in mind, unquote, to bridge differences between Israel and Hamas on a ceasefire deal, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said. Quote, I will tell you what we heard directly from two senior advisors to Prime Minister Netanyahu today, and that is that Israel is still committed to reaching a ceasefire. There are a few remaining sticking points. What they mean are living people. Those are the sticking points. And we're working to try to resolve those. We're committed to trying to do that. Following the Israeli strike targeting Daif, Blinken expressed, quote, serious concern about the recent civilian casualties in Gaza. Miller said, adding that Israel had a right to target militants, but must do more to reduce civilian casualties. Yeah, they're gonna take that under advisement right away, Count Morlock. Just absolutely horrific. Any peace talks. Look, they're in peace talks, right? Hopeful peace talks. Look what they're doing during the peace talks.
They've been in peace talks for months now, they've said.
Sure. This is all a game. This is the game Israel has always played. They will come to the table as a stalling tactic while they do what they're going to do. And what they're going to do is genocide and ethnically cleanse this region. Any pretenses of talks, look at what Netanyahu's demanding. He's demanding a ceasefire that's not a real ceasefire. Well, but we have to still be able to go after Hamas. Well, that's not a ceasefire.
Yeah, right. No, it's just it's amazing this game that has been played for really, I mean, the last 10 months, right? I mean for the
last 76 years.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in terms of, well, there's a ceasefire that we're working through, and then it always falls apart because obviously the goal has nothing to do with eradicating Hamas. It's about eradicating that Gaza Strip. It's about clearing that out and claiming that land. And there's been a lot of airtime occupied by the presidential race in these past couple of weeks because I don't think between the debate and the shooting, I don't think there has. I can't think of two more tumultuous weeks in the history of presidential electoral politics at this moment.
Probably not.
And so that has created a lot of focus on that. But remember, as all of you guys do, I'm sure, that no viable candidate for president voices any opposition, any meaningful opposition to any of this. None of them. And that goes for RFK as well.
Nope.
Right? And I wish Jill Stein were viable, but unfortunately she's not. And so that gives you a sense of where we're at, and it gives you a sense of where we're going to be in January of next year, when all indications are that Donald Trump will be the president again. Now you have to think, okay, what does organizing around causes like this look like under those circumstances? Do more people join us because now we stick Trump to this? Maybe, but maybe not. A lot of Democrats showed their true colors on this. A lot of them threatened to vote for Trump over this.
Right.
Michael Rappaport, biggest never Trump a shill. You're a pig dick. This that. He's saying you might vote for Donald Trump over this.
Oh yeah,
right. So that gives you a sense of what's going to be necessary. It's going to take a lot of solidarity and a lot of courage and a willingness, yes, as we said earlier, to bridge certain divides between certain factions of the left and really band together, because as much as the distinctions between what we call left and right have blurred over the past few years, but October 7th brought them into focus in a way that they had not been in years past. Right, because even a guy like JD Vance, right, who's talking about how we need peace in Ukraine. Well, where is he on this? The exact wrong place. Just like fucking everybody else.
All of them.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
The only bright spot I can give you, I'd like to do some research on this if I get a minute, because this would be uplifting. I've seen it floating around that 16,000 Israeli businesses have gone bankrupt since this started. Because between boycotts, obviously nobody's taking a vacation there now. And a lot of people, not just for safety reasons, for ideological reasons, won't go to Israel now. I sent you over a story about some Israelis abroad are getting denied service at restaurants, or getting denied service at hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad Israel is there to save me from anti-Semitism.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Thanks, Israel. Thanks. So I'm going to look into that. And the European Union just moved to sanction all of these settler organizations and individual settlers in the West Bank. It's not nearly enough. But hey, man, the more steps like that you see, the closer you are to actually sanctioning Israel.
Right. Right. And that is certainly part of the long-term strategy in terms of getting some justice for this.
Yes.
All right. We're going to take our remaining Super Chats and Rumble Rants, and then we're out of here. Buckeye fan, if Bernie wins in 2020, thanks for the $5, do Dems still hold on to a significant part of the working class?
If he had, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of them. Although I will say, I think 2016 was the real opportunity. By 2020, a lot of them had defected to Trump already. Yeah, right. Like by 2020, a lot of them had branded themselves Trumpers already. That's why Bernie's 2020 campaign felt less radical, because it was, and it kind of, I kept arguing this as it was going on. I'm like, love it or hate it, it kind of has to be less radical. It has to be a more Democrat-aligned campaign, because the populists who could have gone either way in 2016 went to Trump. A lot of them are lost by now. So he had no choice but to run a watered-down version of the campaign, which is why, to answer your question, yes, they would have held some of them, but the real opportunity, as Russ said, was 2016, because that was where the real decision point was.
We stand against all forms of homophobia, racism, ableism, limb differencism. If you want to wear a diaper, that's okay too.
Yeah, right. I mean, he had no choice but to do that, because that was his party at that point.
Puppy play, you're welcome here.
Welcome here. Jack Black canceled Tenacious Detour because Kyle Glass made a comment. Yeah, I won't even read that, but yes, I know that. And yeah, just unbelievably fucking asinine thing to say. And talk about putting your partner in a bad spot, because he said he was blindsided. Yeah, he was. Imagine one of us does that to the other when
he's I've just seen the headlines, but apparently Jack Black's not allowed in Australia now.
Yeah, I didn't read that. But yeah, you talk about a bad... I mean, these guys are supposed to be improv comics, too. You talk about not passing your partner the ball. Wow.
Well, hey, man, I mean, that's the theme of all these lib memes.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all saying that. They're all saying that. And then you're going to come and say, well, Trump has encouraged the normalization of violence?
Yeah.
And you're going to behave like that in the aftermath of an assassination? And they're still saying it's staged. They're still running around trying to say it's staged.
Well,
because the picture was too good.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, this is part of why I said.
And you know what? Actually, that should show you that it was not staged, because if you knew anything about what it takes to stage something, you couldn't stage that.
Of course,
especially not under those circumstances. You could not get it that perfect if you tried. It's one of those things that could only happen by chance,
by fluke. Of course, yeah, absolutely. And this is and that's partly why those insiders know how fucked they are. It's partly that. Because, I mean, and if you're going to fucking complain, like if you're out there talking that kind of shit, and then you're going to fucking, chide people for not voting Joe Biden, talk about a self-defeating strategy. If you're serious about trying to salvage this election, trying to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, you would not be putting out memes like that. You would not be saying the kind of shit, because you're not winning 50% of the vote talking like that. That is a self-defeat, and this is I wouldn't even call the Democratic Party a movement. It's a non-movement. It's an anti-movement. But this is a faction of people who knows they've lost. They know they've lost. You wouldn't be talking like shit if you thought you had a chance to win, because you know how damaging it was.
Right.
They're past caring because they know it's over. If it has a Gucci store, probably not communist. Yeah, maybe it is.
I'm telling you, man, like all these videos I'm watching of the Chinese cities, same in Vietnam, man. You know, you got all these chain store, Lancome and everything in the background.
Maybe these systems aren't as rigid as we think they are. You know what I mean? Like, who's to say?
Yeah, I'm not attacking them. I'm telling you, this is what I see. I'm because I'm going to go there. With any place I'm going to go, I do a lot of research. I do a lot of study. I'm looking at Cambodia. I'm looking at Laos. But obviously, politically, that's the most interesting regions I'm looking at going to. And it's complicated.
$1 Million Trooper, thanks for the $2. I think the stock market is reacting to remarks from Powell regarding interest rates. Trump is probably moving to crypto higher, though.
That too. Yeah, it was moving on Powell, but it also shot right up after because the Powell comments had already played out.
The market's going to see a big bounce as the campaign goes on.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah. Yes.
Make the background a collage of crying shitlibs. Yeah,
the Hillary voters. Put the Hillary voters as our border.
Yeah, I have. Where's the book here? What page is it? Do I have it marked down? Yeah, here it is. That could be it right there. See? That could be
that would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
Friend of show, Jordan, says that the Dems are turning on Biden again. That's his headline on the video stream he's doing now. We'll see what he means by that. Yeah.
Yes. We'll have to super chat him. Let's see here. Also, Ohio's Republican governor will appoint a Republican to replace Senator Vance. Thank you, Sparky. Ardeen W. Russ, you see a stable society. The U.S. sees competition that needs to be destroyed, perhaps destabilized, if you will. You talking about China?
Well, you gotta. Yes, you have a good point.
Indeed. Scream for Me Sarajevo is a documentary about Bruce Dickinson coming to occupied Sarajevo with his band. Don't Cry for Me Argentina got nothing to do with it, Russell. Was that is? I never heard of that.
You don't know the musical Evita?
No, I heard of Don't Cry for Me Argentina. I haven't heard about the documentary that he's talking about.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Dems aren't weak or incompetent. Remember them turning on a dime to defeat Bernie 2020? The con game is they're good yet weak and incompetent. Truth is they're calculating and vicious. They just don't care. Yeah, no, they're very competent when it comes to crushing the left. Yeah, no doubt about that. If Trump wasn't a Zionist, says Real Just in Time, I'd probably vote for him because he has balls, tenacity, and most importantly, he's hilarious. Yo, the call, we should really do the RFK phone call because the news is that RFK leaked the call, but what Trump is saying in that call is fucking funny. It's a darkly funny call. And again, just shows you there's nobody like this guy. Like there's nobody with the fucking
I saw baby get vaccinated once he turned into a rabbit.
He says when he's on the call, he says, I felt something on my ear. It was like a giant mosquito.
Yeah.
He's talking about a fucking bullet hit your ear. I mean, it felt like a big mosquito. I mean, just the guy is a fucking character. I mean, the guy is fucking one of a. Felt like a mosquito bit me on the ear. A fucking gunshot coming from 400 feet away. Wow. Use my name if you need to, but get Trump to bring Cynthia McKinney back from exile and put her in his administration. Yeah, that might be a tough sell, I think, Sparky. But you said use your name or don't use your name. Would be interesting to know if BDS is working. I hope so. Well, it seems to be. According to what Russ just said, and we've seen stories like that. Excuse me. Landrew, thanks for the $100, Landrew.
Oh, snap.
Let's give Landrew a sound drop.
Caught me unawares.
Yeah. All at once there. Snuck up right at the end, Landrew. Thank you for that very much. That's very kind of you.
Landrew. Landrew is dead.
Beautiful. It seems we are living 7 days in May. I recommend everyone watch it. Thank you for that. And thank you for that donation. Brandon Guillory, reminiscent of Waco. Thank you, Brandon. Let's see here. Jimmy needs to stop being nice to Tulsi. She supports Israel. He pushed back on Vivek, but not her. When did he have her on? She hasn't been on his show in a while, has she?
She hasn't been on his show in forever.
Years. I thought it was years. Kim and Savvy called her out. He should too. Did he? He didn't interview her recently. Did
he didn't even push back on Candace Owens when she did the whole salute. I'm gonna have a word with him later.
No, but seriously, he didn't interview Tulsi lately, did he? No, we didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, would be interesting to know. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong. We did that one already. Ambitious. Yeah, what was that about? Ambitious, aspirational. 200007 by Mode Skeletor. Yes, that is aspirational. Mode selector. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw. All right. So while it's still relevant, all right. So I put up a tweet that's saying that the GOP that the Democrats did something that at one time you would have thought was impossible. They made the GOP cool because there was a video of Trump going into the studio and rapping about getting shot in the ear. Like, would you have ever imagined? I mean, the GOP was the party of
squares.
sock garters.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was how you thought of them. Like the idea that the GOP's gangster, whatever the reality. I'm not even getting into that. I'm talking about the cultural image and impact. And I got some people jumped onto the thread talking about how, we've all been co-opted and it's all a grift and we're all supporting Trump and it's all a conspiracy and we're coordinating with Peter Thiel. And when you become the subject of the conspiracy, it really brings home how most of those things are total bullshit that you hear about people.
Well, of course. Yeah.
It's like, well, and this is why I tend to default to Occam's razor. Like the simplest explanation is usually the best. That came up, you'll see in the Li Fang interview. We were talking about why do the dissident dialogues people have such a uniformity of opinion on foreign policy? Do they work with the three-letter agencies? And your explanation, which is the simpler one, is probably the best. No, they're just Western chauvinists.
Yeah,
and if you're a Western chauvinist, you're going to basically have the same kinds of views on foreign policy.
I owned Li Fang on that. I owned him. Tune in later to watch me own him. I'm kidding. We were fine.
No, we had a lovely conversation.
I'm just trying to drum up clicks because I'm a grifter. That's why. I'm trying to grift into getting people to watch it.
Grifting into it.
Yeah.
People just spin these tales that they just make up in their heads. Listen, man, I've hung with Jimmy a fair amount over the last year. The guy, like him, hate him, love him, hate him, whatever, man. Every word you hear that cat say on the air, he means every syllable.
Oh, yeah. He says it all off the air. Yeah.
He says it all off the air. When you're having dinner with Jimmy, he's not saying, you know what? I really like Pfizer. What do you think about that as an investment? That's not what's going. He says exactly the same shit you see him say on the show. So the idea, there's a conspiracy. We're all getting together with Peter Thiel at a steakhouse. It's just, I don't know, man. People got to weave these tales.
Yeah, and you'll see how much we love Trump when he's in the White House again.
Exactly.
You'll see.
Well, not only that, I actually, I responded a little bit to some of this. I keep using the metaphor of how they had to introduce Gary Oldman's character in Hannibal to make Lecter look good by comparison. Does that sound like a Trump supporter to you? You're talking about how the only way they could make the cannibal serial killer palatable was to put him next to someone worse.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I came in late, but I hope you criticize Vance for being a member of the Federalist Society, a Yale opportunist, and someone who is hated by Appalachians who think his book was fake poverty porn. Well, we didn't get to that today.
I mean, we haven't really had time to deep dive. We could only,
this was
glance
just the
the
game
surface.
theory. Today was just I wanted to emphasize more the significance of the decision to pick him over the Rubio or the Tim Scott or the Burgum or whoever, because it's day one. Don't worry, we'll get to all of it.
And is it hated by all Appalachians? And even if a sizable amount do, I'll tell you a story. If you remember the book Angela's Ashes, which is very good. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend it. And it was the author, Frank McCourt's memoir of growing up poor and Irish. And the way he describes his Irish childhood is fucking horrific, man, with a house where, every time it rained, the lower floors would flood and how they would have to get the pig head from the butcher because they couldn't afford anything else, just horrible. And when I was a horse and carriage driver, I had a bunch of Irish ladies in the back of the carriage right when that book was really popular. And I mentioned I had read it and really liked it. And the woman goes, she's an old woman, "Oh, that's a terrible book." I said, "Why? It's not true?" She said, "Oh, it's not true, but what do you want to bring all that up again for?" So, they might hate it for that reason.
Right. All right, everybody. Well, that's our show. We're going to be on RB Ham's Beyond the Pale on Rumble at 9 o'clock. So go follow his channel and watch us there. That's going to be a lot of fun. But tune in at 8 o'clock, just in a few hours. Get some dinner, pour yourself a cocktail, and tune in at 8 o'clock. We're going to be premiering our full interview with Lee Fong, which we recorded yesterday. It's a little under an hour long, and then we will have clips from that out throughout the week. I'm going to try and get that to premiere on Rumble at the same time. I should be able to do that. So that'll be at 8 o'clock tonight, and then we'll see you back here live Thursday morning for Morning Dew, 9 a.m. Thursday. It's pronounced Appalachian, and it's important, a point of division between Northerners and Southerners. Cool beans. All right. We are out of here. Thank you guys very much to our YouTube chat, to our Rumble chat. Thank you guys all very much for being here. We will see you tonight on RB Ham. If you want to tune into that, that'll be fun. Talking some real shit over there on his Rumble-only show. And then we're going to be back on the airwaves 9 a.m. Thursday. Catch our Lee Fong interview premiering tonight. Hit the subscribe button so you get notified.
The very first of our new regular interview series.
Yes.
Every Tuesday at 8. We got
Our
a
new
big guest
spin-off.
next week and a big guest to start off. Yes, our spin-off show.
Our spin-off podcast, Worse Faith. Yes.
This is our Jeffersons.
Yes, it's our Bad Faith podcast. We call it Worse Faith.
Worse
Faith. Yeah. That's the name of our new spin-off, our sister show. Yes.
We're basically doing Bree Show, only not supercilious and obnoxious.
Exactly. All right, folks. We will see you all next time. RB Ham at 9. Lee Fong interview 8 p.m. premieres on YouTube and Rumble, and then we'll see you back here live Thursday morning at 9. Until then, be safe, be well. Thank you for this afternoon.
Courage.
Please clap.